Welcome to r/EntitledParents, where Karen won't let her daughter learn English. I told my sister she's insane for not teaching her daughter English, and now she's furious with me. My family is originally from Sweden, though I was born and raised in the US. I'm 20 and my sister Kristen is 30. Kristen was born in Sweden and lived there until she was 10, so she grew up speaking both Swedish and English fluently. When my parents moved to the US with Kristen, they focused on helping her adjust to life here, including making sure she spoke English well. When I was born a few years later, they decided not to bother teaching me Swedish at all. They thought it wasn't practical, considering how few people speak Swedish where we live. And they even made a rule that Kristen could only speak English to me so I wouldn't feel left out or struggle to communicate with other kids. I've only been to Sweden twice, both times when I was too young to remember anything, so I don't have any connection to the culture or language. Kristen, on the other hand, cherishes her memories of growing up there. She's always been proud of her heritage and visits Sweden regularly now that she's an adult. About 3 years ago, she married Eric, who's also Swedish. He moved to the US in his early 20s, but is more comfortable speaking Swedish than English. They have a daughter, Elsa, who's 18 months old and just started to talk. This past Christmas, Kristen and Eric brought Elsa over for dinner. I was really excited to see them and I tried to talk to Elsa, but Kristen stopped me and said I could only talk to her in Swedish. That completely threw me off. I asked why, and she explained that they're raising Elsa to only speak Swedish because they want her to stay connected to her roots. Kristen also said they're planning to move back to Sweden eventually. When I asked how soon that might happen, she admitted they don't have a set timeline. It could be a year from now or 10 years. I thought that was pretty unreasonable, especially since they live in the US for the time being. I told Kristen that not teaching Elsa English is a huge mistake. They brushed it off and said Elsa will pick it up when she starts kindergarten. That made me even more frustrated. I told her I understand wanting Elsa to know Swedish, especially if they're planning to move back someday, but refusing to teach her English at all doesn't make sense. I pointed out that Elsa has English-speaking relatives here and will eventually need to communicate with teachers and other kids if they're still living in the US when she starts school. Kristen didn't take it well. She got defensive and accused me of being a jerk, which honestly felt like a slap in the face. I told her I wasn't trying to attack her or her culture, but that raising Elsa in a bubble where she can only speak Swedish is going to make life harder for her, especially since almost no one around here speaks that language. Kristen fired back, saying I was being dramatic and that Elsa will adapt if they're still here when she starts school. Our parents mostly agreed with me, but said I crossed the line when I called Kristen's decision insane. They think I should have been more tactful and tried to see her point of view. It's not like I'm saying Swedish isn't important. I actually think it's awesome to grow up bilingual. But refusing to teach your kid the language of the country they currently live in feels short-sighted. Now I'm questioning whether I was too harsh or not. Maybe I should have worded things differently. But I still think Kristen's plan is flawed. Elsa deserves the chance to be able to communicate with both sides of her family and function easily in whatever environment she's in. Am I wrong for thinking this? Not the jerk. They live in the US, but they might move back to Sweden, so they're not teaching their daughter English. That's actually pretty dangerous. For example, what happens if Elsa gets lost and she can't understand when people ask her where her parents are, nor could she tell anyone who they are? I also have a good friend from Sweden, and she speaks 8 languages. According to her, English is a required subject in school in Sweden, so Elsa would actually be behind other kids who may have been speaking and/or understanding English their whole lives. You're the jerk, and literally nobody in these comments knows jack about what they're talking about or language acquisition. Your sister is doing exactly what experts recommend in order to teach a native language in a region that's not spoken. I promise it's not going to slow her kids down in the slightest. Learning English is inevitable in the US, and not only that, the kid is going to end up more fluent and comfortable in English regardless. You'd be surprised by how much your niece will already know by the time school starts, and by the time first grade begins, nobody will be able to tell she didn't learn English as a first language at home. You're the jerk. I'm a preschool teacher, and I've taught a couple kids who came in not speaking English. My grandmother only spoke Spanish at home and picked up English when she went to first grade. You and your parents are factually wrong. Elsa will pick up English quickly and easily in school, and speaking Swedish at home won't hinder her at all. I would disagree. I teach kindergarten, and while my students who only spoke one language learned to speak English eventually, it was hard on them. Many days of crying, getting lost, being confused, and struggling to socially integrate. Yes, it's possible, but the kid has parents who both speak both languages. You're the jerk. I have a master's degree in linguistics, and you are completely off base. Language acquisition experts recommend exactly this when raising bilingual kids. That kid will be exposed to English everywhere. There's literally no way they could stop that kid from learning English while living in an English-speaking country. Your master's in linguistics didn't help you to read the part where her sister is preventing her own aunt from communicating with her in English, which happens to be the only language she knows. If the kid has two parents speaking Swedish and some member of her family's wider circle speaking English, she'll be bilingual. Her sister is being fanatical. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Just do the dishes that are mine? Have fun with bugs infesting your dishes. I'm a 27-year-old woman living with 3 male roommates. They're all grad students, and I'm a couple of years older than them. I have the master bedroom while they're all tucked away on the other side of the house. Somehow, I've fallen into this unofficial house mom role, which isn't the worst thing in the world most of the time. I'll remind them to take out the trash or pay the electric bill, and they actually do it, so it's fine. But when it comes to cleanliness, specifically dishes, it's like they forgot how to adult entirely. Here's the thing. When I cook, I either clean up as I go or soak the dishes and wash them within a couple of hours. It's not rocket science, and it keeps the kitchen usable. My roommates, though? They seem to think the sink is a magical black hole where dirty dishes disappear on their own. 2 weeks ago, I reached my breaking point. I went to make some pasta and couldn't even wash my pan because the sink was so full of their crap. Plates, bowls, utensils, just stacked up like some kind of art installment dedicated to poor life choices. I was annoyed, but I didn't want to come off as a total nag. So, out of frustration and a bit of passive-aggressive energy, I cleaned all the dishes myself. Then I waited until everyone was home to address the issue. I was like, hey, I tried to wash a pan earlier, but there was literally no space in the sink. I know you guys are busy with school, but we can't let this pile up happen. It feels like all the kitchen stuff is getting left to me, and that's not cool. Can we try to keep up with cleaning our dishes within like 48 hours max? They were surprisingly apologetic. Nathan, Luciano, and Sanjeet all nodded and swore they'd do better. Nathan was like, oh my goodness, of course the dishes aren't your responsibility. We're sorry. From now on, only clean your own stuff. We'll take care of ours. Fast forward to 3 days ago, and guess what? All 3 of them managed to vanish like some magician's trick. Nathan went out of state to visit his family. Luciano jetted off to South America with his lab mates. Sanjeet probably shacked up at his girlfriend's place. Good for him. The problem is, they all left behind a disaster in the kitchen, a mountain of dirty dishes. Now, I live in the South. It's starting to get warm, and with warmth comes bugs, gnats, flies, and who knows what else have decided to throw a party in our sink. I'm disgusted. Normally, I'd just clean everything out of spite, but this time, no. They said their dishes weren't my responsibility, so I'm not touching them. I haven't even been in the kitchen because it's so gross. Thankfully, my master bedroom comes with a bathroom, and I decided to start washing my dishes in the bathroom sink. It's bug-free and it doesn't smell like a swamp. Tomorrow, 2 of them are coming back from their trips. I can't wait for them to walk into that kitchen and see what happens when they leave the house mom to fend for herself. I'm not saying anything. I'm just letting the natural consequences of their laziness speak for themselves. Let's see if they finally get the hint. Update. To everyone saying I should have just moved the dishes into their rooms, I appreciate the creativity, but that wouldn't really be malicious compliance, now would it? Plus, I had zero interest in touching those crusty plates. Still, it's a solid idea for a future petty revenge. Noted. For those saying I was setting the house up for a bug infestation, it's an old rental in the woods in the South, so bugs are just a fact of life here. They're gross, but manageable if you stay on top of things. Usually they hang out around the trash can, and I spray the area with Raid whenever we take the trash out. The point of this whole thing wasn't about avoiding bugs entirely. It was about showing my roommates that preventing gross situations is a shared responsibility. Anyway, onto the good part. My roommates came back at different times, so let me give you a quick rundown of the players here. Nathan, the one who went to visit family. Luciano, the party boy who went to South America. And Sanjeet, the guy who spends most of his time with his girlfriend. Sanjeet was the first to return. He got back with his girlfriend late at night and went straight to his room. The next morning, I was rudely awakened by my cat deciding my foot was a scratching post, so I was up early enough to hear them in the kitchen. Sanjeet commented on how gross the kitchen was, and his girlfriend agreed. He muttered something about how this is why he doesn't cook, which is accurate because he mostly survives on takeout. Based on that, I figured most of the dishes weren't his. They left not long after that. Next up was Nathan, who arrived around 2 p.m. I was outside hosing down my cat's litter box, another bug hotspot, when he pulled into the driveway. I heard him go inside but didn't want to hover, so I waited to see what would happen. I went back in a little later and he was in his room unpacking, but the kitchen was still buzzing, literally. At this point, I was getting antsy. Some of you guys had me worried with your comments about them not caring or just ignoring it altogether. I started thinking, what if they really don't do anything? What if I just end up living with a colony of bugs now? So I mentally prepared for plan B, waiting until everyone was back, dragging them into the kitchen, and giving them a speech. I'm a pretty small person, but when I'm angry, I can be intimidating. A part of me was almost looking forward to going off on them if it came to that. Luckily, it didn't. Nathan eventually came out of his room to make a frozen pizza. I heard dishes clanking and smelled pepperoni, so I figured he'd at least seen the mess. Sure enough, he came to my room, looking both annoyed and grossed out. Nathan.
Hey, Witty.
Me. Hey man, how was your trip? Nathan.
Good, but I'm jet-lagged. What happened in here?
Me. What do you mean?
Is something rotting in the garbage disposal?
Me. You mean the bugs? That's what happens when crap gets left out for days and everyone leaves town. Nathan made a disgusted face. Me. Yeah, it's gross. Cleaning stuff's under the sink if you're looking for it. Nathan.
Cool, thanks.
To his credit, he got to work. I could hear him washing dishes, scrubbing the sink, and spraying Raid. I let him do his thing while I sat at my desk doing a little happy dance. By the time I checked the kitchen to make some tea, it was sparkling clean. Most of the bugs were gone too. There were still a few gnats here and there, but it wasn't the bug utopia it had been earlier. Luciano came home around 8 p.m. in a great mood, beers in hand. He started unloading them onto the counter and yelled for Nathan to join him. Nathan, clearly still jet-lagged, shuffled out of his room, and this conversation followed. Nathan.
Dude, you owe me like 5 beers. Did you make chicken last week?
Luciano.
Probably.
You want some?
No, dude. You didn't wash your crap. It was all still in the sink when I got back.
Luciano gives an awkward pause. Nathan shows him pictures of the sink.
This is what it looked like. I know the baking sheet was mine, but...
After that, their voices dropped to a whisper, so I didn't catch everything, but I'm pretty sure I heard my name. Whether Nathan painted me as the house mom or the house jerk, I don't really care. The sink was clean, and that's all that mattered. When I popped into the kitchen later to make more tea, everything still looked good. Luciano and Nathan were out on the porch, and Sanjeet was still out with his girlfriend. I gave the counters one last wipe down and sprayed for good measure. The kitchen smells like bug spray now, but honestly, that's better than the alternative. I can't promise this will stop them from leaving dishes in the sink forever, but for now, I'll take the win. If they pull this crap again though, they might wake up to dirty plates on their pillows or find all the clean dishes locked away. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Am I the jerk for telling my ex-boyfriend's daughter it's not my problem? I, 38 female, dated John, 40 male, for about 6 months. We had known each other for a year before we started dating, so it wasn't some whirlwind romance or anything. I thought we were building something solid. But we broke up 3 months ago, and honestly, the main reason was his daughter, Tia, who's 16. From the very beginning, Tia made it clear she hated me. She was openly hostile. She'd throw out rude comments, criticize me, insult my cooking, and refer to me as that jerk, like it was my official title. She even told people I was the reason her parents split up, which couldn't be further from the truth. Her parents divorced 10 years ago. I didn't even know John until 9 years after that. I really tried to handle it maturely. I have a stepmom who forced her way into my life growing up, so I've seen how not to handle these situations. I wanted to do better. I tried to give Tia space, let her adjust, and figure things out on her own. I even sat her down and asked what I could do to at least make things civil between us. Her response, "You could voluntarily leave this world." Yeah, that was her solution. John didn't help much. He'd make all the right noises, threatening to ground her or take her phone, but they were always empty threats. She'd continue her behavior without any real consequences. Even Tia's mom, Chloe, who by the way is an awesome person, tried to intervene. Chloe sat Tia down to ask her what her problem was with me, and Tia couldn't come up with a single reason. She just didn't like me. The final straw came one night when they were at my house. We'd ordered food, and I went to pick it up. When I got back, I walked into my dining room and saw John sweeping up the shattered pieces of my grandmother's antique picture. This wasn't just some random decoration. My grandmother meant the world to me, and that picture was one of the few things I had left of her. Seeing it broken gutted me. I demanded to know what had happened. Tia smirked at me and said, "Oops, it was an accident." I asked how it was an accident, and she just shrugged like it was no big deal. She claimed she bumped the table and it fell. For context, my dining table is a heavy, solid piece of furniture. There's no way that picture just fell off. You'd have to slam into the table to shake it enough to knock something over. It was deliberate. I told them both to leave. I couldn't even look at her smirking face. I spent the rest of the night crying over something I could never replace. The next day, I called John and I ended things. He tried to talk me out of it, but I told him I couldn't keep doing this. He couldn't or wouldn't control his daughter, and I wasn't willing to live in that kind of chaos. My mind was made up. Fast forward to 2 days ago. I was leaving for work, and there's Tia waiting for me. She looked upset, which was surprising because she usually carried herself like nothing bothered her. She started ranting about John's new girlfriend, Jane. According to Tia, Jane was a monster. Apparently, Jane wasn't putting up with Tia's usual nonsense. Tia would call Jane names, and Jane would fire back. Tia would insult her, and Jane would return the favor. Then Tia pulled her usual move. She accidentally broke something of Jane's. In retaliation, Jane took Tia's phone and smashed it. Tia was beside herself, asking what she should do. I asked if she had told her mom. She said Chloe already knew and had decided Tia wasn't allowed to go to John's house anymore. I told her, well, sounds like everything's settled then. She started crying and asked if that was it. Was I really not going to do anything or even comfort her? I just looked at her and said, "Yep, your mom handled it. It's not my problem." Then I walked away. Later that night, I told my sister about the whole thing. She called me a jerk. She said it was obvious Tia was hurting and that I should have been there for her. According to my sister, Tia came to me for a reason, and the least I could have done was be a shoulder for her to cry on. But honestly, I just don't feel anything anymore when it comes to Tia. I'm numb. After everything she put me through, I don't have it in me to care. Maybe that makes me a bad person, but I don't know what else to say. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Tia's been awful to you for months, and you don't owe her anything. She's not your responsibility, especially after everything she's put you through. You tried to be kind, and she repeatedly disrespected you. Why should you keep tolerating her crap? Am I the jerk for just refusing to cook for my wife at this point? I'm 39, and my wife Jennifer is 37. We've been married for 8 years, and we have 2 kids. I work full-time, and Jennifer stays at home with the kids. She's an amazing mom, super patient, always involved, and the kind of person who never misses a school event or bedtime story. But when it comes to cooking, she wants no part of it. That works out fine for us. I love to cook. My dad was a chef, so I grew up in the kitchen learning from him. By the time I was 10, I could make a mean spaghetti from scratch. Later, I worked as a line cook for years, and now cooking is something I genuinely enjoy. I find it relaxing, and I like putting together meals my family and friends love. Most people rave about my cooking. When we have guests, the compliments pour in. My kids almost always ask for seconds, and I'm proud of being able to put good food on the table. But Jennifer, she hates my cooking. At first, I thought it was just her being honest, but it's constant. Everything I make is too salty, too spicy, too bland, too mushy, or too undercooked. I can't win. And she doesn't just complain at the table, she backseat cooks. I'll be at the stove doing my thing, and she'll stand there telling me what I'm doing wrong, even though she won't step foot in the kitchen to cook herself. Then, after all the effort I put in, she'll take one tiny bite, make a face, and throw the rest away. The cherry on top is that she won't even try to like what I make. Instead, she'll pull some garbage like a Hot Pocket or a microwave burrito out of the freezer. It's infuriating. I work all day, come home, cook for the family, and get hit with criticism while she chows down on processed junk. Last Wednesday was my breaking point. I made Salisbury steaks with mushroom gravy, cream cheese mashed potatoes, and roasted asparagus. It was one of my dad's recipes, and I spent extra time making sure everything was perfect. I plated it up, set it in front of her, and before she even took a bite, she made this over-the-top, disgusted face. She poked at the steak like it was radioactive, took the tiniest bite possible, and then made a dramatic gagging sound. She didn't even try to hide it from the kids. Then, without a word, she got up, grabbed a microwave burrito, and left the table. I felt humiliated and completely over it. I didn't say anything in the moment because the kids were there, but I decided I was done. The next day, I made teriyaki bowls with broccoli. When I handed out plates, I skipped hers entirely. She just sat there looking confused until she asked where her food was. I told her I wasn't cooking for her anymore. She looked shocked and asked why. I told her it was a waste of food, time, and effort. She could just go have a Hot Pocket since that's clearly what she wanted anyway. She was livid. She went on this whole rant about how I should try harder to make food she likes, as if I haven't been trying for years. She called me selfish and immature for refusing to cook for her. I told her I was done being insulted for doing something I enjoy, and that she's free to eat whatever she wants, but it won't be from me. Since then, she's been eating microwave meals or ordering takeout, and things have been tense. She keeps telling me I escalated the situation unnecessarily, but honestly, I feel like I set a boundary that's long overdue. It's not like I stopped cooking for the kids. I still make meals for them, and they seem to appreciate it. Some of my friends say I overreacted, but I don't think I did. Why should I keep putting effort into something that just gets thrown back in my face? It's not like I'm forcing her to eat what I make. She's got her microwave dinners and burritos. Maybe this will make her appreciate what she had, or maybe she won't care. Either way, I'm not dealing with the constant criticism anymore. It's really not about the food. All these years of cooking by an expert, and she never happened to like a single dish? Bottom line is, she likes tearing him down. She knows he's passionate about cooking and takes pride in it, and everyone loves his cooking, so she wants to crap on the one thing he loves. She's a mean, nasty, negative person. OP, show this to her. Karen's sister demands I pay for her wedding because I can afford it. I, 33 female, have a younger sister, Jamie, who's 31, who got engaged to her fiancé a few months ago, and now she's deep into the wedding planning. Our parents gifted us $25,000 each as a wedding present when we got engaged to help with wedding expenses and just to help us get started with some savings. For background, I got married 2 years ago to my husband, and we practically had little to no expenses. We just did a small wedding ceremony and celebration in my parents' backyard, and I used my mom's old dress, so our only expenses were really just food and photography. Due to this, we saved $20,000 of the money we were gifted and just put it into savings. Although my husband and I were happy with our day, Jamie had a lot to say. She practically spent every single family event after the wedding gossiping about how my wedding was so trashy and cheap. I think she expected a lot more from me because I work as a software engineer and my husband is a surgeon, and we could have afforded to have had a much nicer wedding. Now it's time for her wedding, and she has plans to go all out for it, which I wouldn't care about if she could afford it. But instead, she's become a greedy bridezilla, asking anyone and everyone for cash. My parents refused to give more than the original $25,000, and the other family members have chipped in, but maybe $5,000 max combined. Unfortunately, my sister knows I saved the $20,000 from my parents and that my husband and I have a good amount of money saved up because of our salaries. She's been asking me nonstop to give her the $20,000 as a wedding gift or help pay another one of her events like the bridal shower, bachelorette, rehearsal dinner, or honeymoon. Her reasoning is that my husband and I could easily afford to gift her one of these things, and I even gifted my cousin a honeymoon vacation as a wedding gift last year, so why couldn't I do something similar for my only sibling when I did it for my cousin? She's right in the sense that I could easily afford to pay for parts of her wedding, but in all honesty, I don't want to give her anything after she treated me so poorly following my own wedding. I told her my reasoning and that I don't want to financially support someone who didn't support me on my big day, and now she's been ignoring me, going around telling family that I'm extremely selfish and immature for this. Apparently, she's already put down deposits on a lot of services and vendors for her plans and just expected me to help pay for it. But now she has no way of paying the vendors and she can't get her deposits back either. So now my family wants me to help her out so that she doesn't lose the little money she already has. I just don't see how this is my problem. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She got a sum of money for it, and if she can't stay within that budget, nobody else needs to pay her a penny. You don't owe her even 5 cents. You were smart to have a low-budget wedding and have money for other things after. Smart, smart, smart. She was rude, rude, rude. Sister's audacity is so lacking in self-awareness that it's almost comical. Even if she hadn't spent the last 2 years publicly trashing OP's wedding, she still wouldn't be entitled to any money. And her behavior after OP's decision only shows that OP made the right one. Not the jerk. Why do people plan events that are outside their budget and then expect others to make up the difference? $25,000 is a lot of money if spent wisely. It seems she banked on having the $20,000 you saved from the outset. No, just plain no. Forget your HOA and its ridiculous rules. Back in high school, I was all about my car. Don't get me wrong, it was a rolling piece of junk, but it was my car. It had a trade-in value of maybe $5, but it was my car. I was learning how to take care of it, by which I mean I found where the dipstick was and how to pull it. I hadn't yet moved on to tire inflation, one step at a time. One day after school, I drove over to my friend's place. We jump out, pop the hood, pull the dipstick, check the oil, and it was fine, so put the hood back down. I had no idea what an HOA was, nor what it meant. I was just a happy, ignorant teenager, eager to demonstrate how responsible I was with my wheels. A few days go by, and we're hanging out at my friend's place when his mom comes home. She starts giving us the business in that I'm annoyed but trying not to be, voice about a warning she received from the HOA regarding repairing cars in your driveway, complete with a photo of my car with the hood up. Really, she was being pretty good, though clearly annoyed. We explained that we weren't repairing anything, that I was just checking the oil levels and didn't even need any tools. Picture just had the hood up. She softened quite a bit, and the focus of her annoyance shifted from us to the HOA, since it's entirely reasonable for anyone to check the level of oil in a car. She finds her copy of the HOA rules, and we all read them together. Sure enough, there's a bylaw that says you can't repair a car in the driveway. I protest that I wasn't repairing anything, I was just checking the oil. Reading the exact rules on exactly what was forbidden sparked an idea. I look at my friend, raise an eyebrow, and say, "Fight the power? Fight the power." I propose my plan to his mom and ask for permission since she's going to have to deal with the fallout. She's on board since she thinks this is supremely stupid, and we set in motion. Cue the malicious compliance. Every day after school, my friend and I drove our cars to his place, parked in their driveway, raised the hoods, and just looked at the engines. No tools. We weren't even near them. We didn't check the oil, we didn't so much as touch them, nor wipe them down with a rag. All we did was expose them to the birds, the sky, and God above to just let them breathe. After a while, I got bored, so I started setting up an easel and drawing my engine 10 minutes at a time. My friend had to one-up me, so decided he needed some tasteful artistic photos with his engine. He judged the best photos would be him laying over the engine shirtless and fake kissing it. Just absurd, over-the-top, moronic high schooler stuff. Predictably, the HOA was on us quickly. The warnings quickly turned into fines, complete with pictures of both vehicles with their hoods up. Then more pictures with mine with its hood up and an easel in front. Then even more pictures with my friend's with its hood up, him laying on the engine compartment and me taking pictures of him with the camera. Soon enough, his mom let us know that it was time for the monthly HOA meeting. Of course, all three of us had to go in person to protest the fines. So the motley pair of us show up along with his mom and his mom's stack of fine notices. I bring along my engine drawing and we printed some of my friend's engine photos larger than normal. After a while, it was new business time and my friend's mom steps up. I'm pretty sure they expected her to play the "My son and his friend are morons, please make these fines go away since I didn't know what they were doing" sympathy card. Nope, not a chance. She politely but firmly attested that she was being sent fines for something that wasn't in the bylaws and asked the board to stop. One of the board members spoke up, saying that working on cars was against the bylaws, and clearly that's what was going on since both hoods were up. Oh, you should have seen their faces when she corrected them that the bylaw said no repairs were allowed, that there were no repairs going on in any of the pictures since no tools were visible, and that we were just doing art projects for school. Even longer faces were seen when she showed my, truthfully, completely terrible drawing of my engine, along with the date stamped a couple of weeks ago pictures. This was back when film cameras stamped the date directly on the picture of my friend kissing his engine. The HOA president called for a 5-minute recess, during which the board huddled in a corner of the room. After the recess, the president succinctly said, "Ma'am, we're going to dismiss all of your fines. Have a nice evening." We darn near danced out of that meeting. Being the obnoxious jerks that my friend and I were, we had to do the drawing and photo routine a few more times just to make sure they weren't going to start sending more fines. They wisely didn't, and being victorious, we soon found other ways to annoy them. Am I the jerk for taking the vegetables out of my kid's burger? I, 39 female, have 3 kids who are 6, 9, and 12. My husband, who's 40, and I decided a few days ago to take the kids to our local restaurant as a treat because we don't do this often. My husband is a bit of a health nut and is very restrictive of the foods my kids eat, which is the main source of our arguments. On Thursday, we went to the restaurant and the kids were super excited. The server was asking what the kids wanted when my 12-year-old, we'll call her Emily, said, "Cheeseburger with bacon." My husband butted in and said, "With lettuce and tomato." Emily's face immediately fell. My husband didn't even notice, and Emily looked super bummed. After the server took our orders, my husband turned to Emily and asked her what's wrong. She said that she didn't want lettuce and tomato on her burger because she doesn't like them. He sighed and said that they've been through this a million times, and having vegetables with every meal was super important. Emily looked like she was about to cry. She is neurodivergent, and a lot of food tastes and textures really bother her, tomatoes being a large one. My husband doesn't seem to care, which really bothers me. When the food came, Emily didn't even touch the burger. So when my husband went to the bathroom, I took the lettuce and tomato off the burger, put them on mine, and winked at Emily. She grinned and gladly ate her burger. My husband didn't say anything about it until that night. He told me that taking the vegetables off was a violation of his trust because he was just looking out for our daughter. I told him that it was just one meal and not having vegetables once wasn't a big deal. He said that those vegetables were very important. I left the room and have been talking to him as little as possible. So Reddit, am I the jerk for taking the vegetables off my daughter's burger? I think I might be the jerk because it's just lettuce and tomato, and my kids having vegetables is really important to my husband, but I feel like he was being super controlling and I never want to see my kid upset. Update. I went to bed when this post had about 200 comments and 50-something upvotes. Now there's 5.8 thousand upvotes and 1.8 thousand comments. I've been reading through a ton of them, and my heart is breaking for everyone who's sharing their stories with eating disorders and their relationships with food. I've decided to discuss this with my older two about getting into therapy. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my jerk husband. Divorce is a serious contender. I would have considered it sooner, but I always thought that it would be better for the kids if we stayed together. I've now realized that what he's doing is hurtful and it could be life-threatening. I'm thinking about taking the kids over to my parents' house for the week because I don't think I can handle any of this anymore. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I really appreciate it. I'll update later about what I've decided to do. OMG, not the jerk. Your husband is setting your kids up to have a horrible relationship with food. They're kids. They eat when they want and should have a say in what they eat. This. Unhealthy relationships with food, this is so important. Beyond what some parents may know, associating upset and even shame with food is putting this poor kid at an incredibly dangerous road. It's not just about the husband being super controlling, which he is. Like, dude, yikes, there's a lot to unpack there. It's about how this will seriously mess their kid up more than they know. I pray that this doesn't cause too any eating disorders. That may sound extreme, but that is a highly likely outcome of this. Not the jerk, but your hubby is. First of all, tomato is a fruit. And second, lettuce has very little nutritional value. Why not just order a side of veggies with her burger instead of insisting on having them as a burger topping? Info. Why are you with a man who doesn't care about her disability? OP. If I'm being honest, our relationship has been struggling lately. I've been trying to convince him to go to couples counseling, but he's been refusing. We're trying to work it out by ourselves, but it's been really hard. This really pushed me over the edge, so I'm particularly mad about this one. You're the jerk. Welcome to 2023, where wives leave their husbands if we try to get our kids to eat vegetables. Honestly, I feel bad for this guy. There are so many real issues that couples have, yet you choose something like him wanting the kids to eat a few vegetables to flip out over. You're the jerk. It's the way you taught your daughter that hiding things from one parent to get something they want from the other parent is okay. That really undermines your parenting going forward. In the food argument, vegetables at every meal isn't an unreasonable requirement, but your husband should be working to fit in vegetables that the kids like. But this is a discussion you should have with him before you went out. So it's everyone sucks here on the food discussion, but you're the jerk for how you undermined your parenting structure. Your husband also handled you sneaking the lettuce off very positively. Didn't get mad at the daughter who wasn't at fault, didn't bring it up around your daughter to maintain a united parenting front, and discussed afterwards with you afterwards. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance that I could not rely on her in a life or death situation? I have what I think is a very good sense of situational awareness. I'm a quick thinker, and I tend to not panic in dangerous situations. My fiance, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. If I'm being nice, I would say she doesn't have any awareness of danger. If I'm being honest, I would say that she has the survival instinct of a panda raised in captivity. She has no sense of danger around her, doesn't constantly examine her surroundings for things that could be dangerous, and when things are bad, her reaction is to panic and scream. Friday, we went out on a friend of mine's boat, and we got into a dangerous situation. We were anticipating light rain, but we ended up with a downpour, high winds, and high waves. While me and the other men there were trying to strap things down and keep the boat from capsizing, my fiance screamed and cried for dear life. She was in hysterics. And I get it was a scary situation, but her yelling and screaming that, "We're all not gonna make it," and for God to save us, and literally crying, saying that it's my fault that she's on the boat since I asked her to come with me. None of the other girlfriends or wives were doing this, just her. I'm sure the other women there were just as scared, but tried to keep it in for the sake of the men doing something about it. The downpour was really bad for about 15 minutes. So 15 minutes of wailing while we're doing everything we can to keep things all right. We made it back safe with little more damage than a few spilled white claws. On the car ride home, I told my fiance that we needed to talk about how she was behaving during the crisis. Not only was it incredibly embarrassing in front of my boys, but it was distracting, unhelpful, and telling. I told her that today proved to me that if I was in a life or death situation, I could not rely on her to be of any help or to do anything except make things more stressful. I said she needed to learn how to not panic and to be helpful. She got unbelievably mad. She said she thought we weren't going to make it and had reasons to freak out. I told her that all of us were scared, but none of us were as ridiculous as she was. We argued the entire ride home, and she's still upset with me. I think I was right to say this, especially since we plan on spending our lives together and raising a family, and I can't be the only level-headed one. Am I the jerk? What exactly was your aim with this discussion? Because it sounds to me like you wanted to put her in her place, rather than talk about her experience and try to understand what happened with her, so that you could help her manage her stress response better next time. Face it, you are absolutely not trying to help at all by bringing this up with her in the way you did. You are not solutions-focused. You wanted to assign blame and guilt. Think about one thing though. You're not even helping yourself by doing this, because now you've only put extra doubt in your fiance's mind the next time any situations come up. Hey babe, want to talk about what just happened? Your reaction was really intense, and I think we should unpack it a bit. Totally fine if you want to do so at another time too. I love you. That's what you say to someone you love. Phobias and fear is often irrational. I'd be more concerned about my partner's mental state than what my friends thought. You're the jerk. Why did you and your boys think it was a good idea to be on a boat if it was going to rain? Are you all that dumb to not understand that you put yourselves in a life or death situation, or are you just going to be blaming your fiance? You're the jerk. If you really had good situational awareness, you wouldn't have been on a boat during a thunderstorm. Her response, while loud, wasn't really unreasonable. A boat on a lake is one of the most unsafe places to be during a thunderstorm, and if there's lightning nearby, it's even more dangerous. Furthermore, you're not her father. Don't treat her like a kid. You sound like you were more concerned about how you looked in front of your boys than her safety. You're the jerk. You sound absolutely insufferable. You have boating experience. Does she? Probably not. So why are you mad at her for panicking in a situation she was completely unfamiliar in? Not to mention, you got mad at her for embarrassing you in front of your boys? Seriously. And the fact that instead of asking your fiance if she's okay, you went straight to going off on her. It's just, ew. You're a jerk, and this is coming from a man. Not the jerk. She's shown you her true colors. When we face terrifying situations, our real colors come out, and we show who we truly are. She is unfortunately a coward, and you should not be trying to start a family with her. If there's ever a situation where your kids would need her to step up, she would fail them just like she failed you. All she had to do was not act like an idiot, but she was incapable of that. Don't mind all these morons insulting you. If the tables were flipped and the man was the one screaming like a little psycho when the women were the ones saving everyone's lives, they'd be telling her to leave you and calling you pathetic. Town forced to bulldoze new development after building on land they didn't own. I read it. I've got one gem of a story that my grandfather told me about his hometown after he got back from World War II. It has to do with a tree farmer, a corrupt mayor, and over 20 homes getting bulldozed. Enjoy. At the end of World War II, thousands of troops were heading home, starting new families, and wanted to move out of the city. There was a major housing boom all around the country. People couldn't move out of the cities fast enough, and developers could not build homes fast enough. There was a ton of money to be made in the construction business, which led to some underhanded building practices. One such practice was starting construction before the land acquisition was finalized. Enter my grandfather, G. After serving as a pilot during the war, he came home to a very different town. When my grandfather went off to fight in 1942, the town he had described leaving was tired and worn down. But to his amazement, the town he saw stepping off the train in 1948 was anything but. Newly paved roads, a traffic light, and new homes. New homes that just went on and on. He actually got lost on his way back to the family farm due to the new main town road being rerouted while he was away. But what took him by surprise the most was the new development being built on his childhood friend John's tree farm. This was surprising to him, mainly because he knew how much the farm meant to John and his family. The farm went back at least 2 generations, but my grandpa just guessed that the developer made John's family an offer too good to refuse. However, that thought was shot down later that evening during his welcome home dinner back home. It was my great-grandmother who tipped him off that something was off. He couldn't recall exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, "Oh, I just wish John was still alive to be here." My grandpa nearly choked, not because of the news, but because John was not dead. He was still in Hawaii. My grandpa had gotten a postcard from him not but 4 days before. Turns out, while John was off in the Navy fighting in the Pacific Theater, John's dad had suffered a stroke and passed away, and his mother passed less than a week later from a broken heart. More than likely, John was never informed of their passing, and now 20-plus homes were being built on their land. My grandfather about ran out of the house, jumped in his father's Model T, and raced into town to send one bombshell of a telegraph to John in Hawaii. "John, your folks passed. Farm now being built on. Come quick. G." My grandpa never got a response back. He figures that John must have fainted from shock, then jumped up and ran to the Navy base to get on the first boat home. Because he was back home in less than 4 days, and he was mad. According to my grandpa, when he burst through the doors of the mayor's office, everyone in the room looked shocked. The poor desk clerk was fumbling over his words, trying to talk to John. Then the mayor came out of his office to see what all the commotion was about. As soon as he saw John, he went white as a sheet, then ran back into his office and locked the door. Getting nowhere at the mayor's office, John went to the next town over and hired a lawyer. What happened was a 7-year court case that ended in the mayor being sentenced to 8 years in jail and the developer going bankrupt. Turns out that after John's parents had passed, John wasn't able to be contacted for some reason and was just assumed to be dead. So when an out-of-state developer wanted to build homes in the area, the mayor just permitted them to start building on John's farm for a hefty kickback, of course. Also, because of John's lawsuit, the developer couldn't finish the pre-sold homes, which ended up in more lawsuits. In the end, the mayor and the developer and the town ended up having to pay John close to $45,000 total, which is over $752,000 today, and then the farm had to be returned to its prior condition. To say John was happy would be a vast understatement. Today, John's tree farm is a nature reserve, and the story of the corrupted mayor is all but forgotten, except for by a few locals. John passed in 1999. My grandpa has been back to his hometown a few times to visit his grave and to check on the old tree farm. Would I be the jerk for selling my friend's Taylor Swift ticket? I was the one who sat in that awful Ticketmaster queue for literally 7 hours, fighting for my life to get us tickets to his show. I won't specify the show because of the fear of my friend seeing this, but here's the details. When I got our tickets, my friend and I were super close. However, she's become extremely rude and honestly passive-aggressive towards me as of late. I try to ask her if I had done something, but she always says no. I've also tried not to let it bother me, but now I'm aware from other people telling me that she talks crap about me behind my back constantly. I believe this is her boyfriend encouraging it because he's an awful person too, but she continues this behavior even when he isn't around to see it. For example, she'll tell me I didn't do something right, and I show her I did do it. She'll get mad at me and not talk to me for at least 24 hours, or she'll message her boyfriend immediately the second I do something she deems annoying. I truly believe at this point that she's only being nice to me the way she is now because of our tickets. She paid me for hers, face value, and it's still under my Ticketmaster account. If I sell it, it would be face value as well, and I'd be giving her the money back, because obviously it's her money. I just don't feel comfortable going with her anymore, and she's made it clear if we go, she expects to ride together and stay together. And as dumb as it may be, I'm so sick of being treated like garbage because of her. I know it probably seems mean to just sell the ticket and take away her chance of seeing Taylor, but the idea of sitting next to her for 3 hours, plus the hours that it'll take her to drive there, plus any time in a hotel, makes me miserable. She hasn't paid for gas or hotel or anything she would be out of for money-wise if I were to get rid of her ticket. And again, I would 10,000% give her money back because I'm not a thief and would not steal anyone's money. Please weigh in here because our concert isn't in 1 month and I don't know what to do because I feel like it's a jerk move, but at the same time, I'd be returning her money. Edit. The reason I'm wanting to sell the ticket completely is because it will be right beside me the entire show. If I sell it, I understand the friendship is over. But with the way she is, the friendship is over the second I tell her I want to go separate anyway. Edit 2. A lot of people are under the impression that I want revenge. But genuinely, that's not the case. I'd much rather go with her. We've been friends forever. But no matter what I do or say, she refuses to treat me the way I deserve as of recent. I would 100% talk to her before I sell the ticket. I'm just trying to get an opinion on how I should expect her to react. Not the jerk. If you give her 100% of the money back, you shouldn't have to spend that much time with someone who makes you so uncomfortable and miserable. It would suck the joy out of the entire concert, and you definitely don't want that. But if you sell the ticket, all pretenses drop, and things between you two will get even worse. You'll definitely lose the friendship, such as it is. So just be prepared to deal with the blowback. You would be the jerk. It's her ticket. If she wants to sell it, that's up to her. However, you're not obligated to go with her in the same vehicle, etc. She could possibly sue you for selling her ticket since she paid you for it. Let me be clear. You are currently the steward of her property. It's not yours to do with what you want, even if you plan on giving her back what she paid for it. She could sell it for a lot more if she decides not to go. Not the jerk. Reddit is talking like the ticket is the jerk friend's legal property. It's not. OP clarified she is absolutely paying the jerk friend back. OP, have a phone call to do a friend breakup, then return the money immediately after the call ends. Also, don't sell for face value unless you have a different friend you want to come. Neighbor let their brats take all of our Easter eggs. So this happened about 4 days ago, and I'm still livid. So for a quick background, I, 25 female, was in a pretty bad wreck a few months ago. Because of my injuries, I haven't been able to work, so between medical bills and lawyer fees, money's been pretty tight. My sister, Anna, has 4 kids, and I have a 3-year-old son. Before the wreck, I always went out of my way to make sure the kids had good holidays. My siblings and I didn't get anything growing up, so I spoil them. My sister is a single mom, so money is tight for her too, which is why I tried to be a good aunt and go all out. I decided to forego the extravagant Easter baskets from years past because it was out of my budget. I set them down and explained the situation. They understood and asked if we could do a family Easter egg hunt instead. I got cheap eggs in specific colors to make sure each kid knew which eggs to hunt for and bought name brand candy to put in them. I added a few dollars in some of them and a few little toys and trinkets I knew the kids would like. We decided to do it at Anna's house because she had a yard. It took me an hour to hobble around hiding eggs, but it was worth it. We started, and 2 boys came sprinting across the yard with pillowcases. They started picking up eggs with our kids. We tried to explain that this was a family thing, but they ignored us. Their dad came out while this was happening, and I tried to explain. I usually wouldn't mind, but not this time. The dad talked over me. He thanked us for doing this and said his kids were thrilled when they saw me hiding the eggs. I'm sure you don't mind a few of their friends joining in. They're just kids and they get excited. After they were done, they ran back home. They had taken most of the eggs and had messed up the number that each of our kids got. My youngest niece had yellow eggs, and they had only found 2 of them since the neighbor kids had taken them all. The kids were upset, and I was mad. The next day, I went over to their house and asked to speak to their dad. I said that I didn't care that they joined in because they were just kids, but I needed him to pay me back so I could buy more eggs to redo it with just my family. He lost it on me. He said that candy and plastic eggs are cheap, so it shouldn't matter about paying me back because it wasn't much. He started ranting about how I should have told them to stop and how I was a massive jerk for demanding money because his kids wanted to be included in what their friends were doing. He called us greedy and refused to pay me just because my family was upset that they didn't get enough eggs. He basically called me stupid and told me that the point of an egg hunt was competition. I talked to my family about this situation. My sister agrees with what I did, but my mom said I was a jerk for demanding he pay me back because it was just some cheap Easter eggs and candy, so I should just let it go. Not the jerk. An egg hunt in your own yard is not an event open to the public, and you had every right to be angry. That man would have gotten told off that day, and I would have demanded that he be the one to tell his kids to put back every single egg that they stole. You don't come into someone's yard to steal things that don't belong to you, and that's what they did. If the eggs were so cheap, he could have gotten some for his own kids. If you have an Easter egg hunt next year, each egg has a slip of paper with the name of candy on it. After the Easter egg hunt, you all go into the house where you let the kids hand you their slips of paper and you hand them the candy. If neighbor kids steal the plastic eggs, they won't get the candy. I am with you. I would have been furious. That neighbor is a jerk and is teaching his kids poor manners. Having to do this is such BS, but I do think it's a doable workaround for next year. Good thinking. Would I be the jerk if I call the cops on my son? My son, 13 male, has repeatedly stolen from us over the past 2 years. Each time he has denied it, even when we found proof it was him. Last year, he took my husband's, male 48, bank card, added it to his Google account on an old phone, and then spent $300 on a downloaded basketball game. We found it by accident when we found him on the phone, did a search of his Google account, and found the card linked to it. He completely denied it was him and blamed his younger brother, who's 10. His brother has his own phone and never uses his older brother's. There were consequences. We grounded him and took the phone off him. The new phone is on Google Family Link, so we have a lock to prevent him buying anything. Yesterday, we discovered that someone had made 2 payments on our credit card, one for a laptop for $2,000, which was declined, and the other for a bike for $3,000, which went through. We spoke to our credit card company, and they refused to refund the money as we had been to the store before. The $2,000 attempted spend was at a store we use, but where we have never used the card before, hence it was declined. We went to the bike store where someone had spent $3,000 and they agreed to refund the money, minus the admin fee they got charged for refunds. They told us the order was placed online and printed the order for it. They said it was a click and collect order. It had my husband's name on it, but my son's email address and telephone number. They said that they phoned the number after the order was made yesterday and spoke to the person who placed the order. They said that the person was clearly a kid and was unhappy when they said that the card holder had to be present when the bike was collected. We checked my son's email and there was no evidence of an order being placed, but there was evidence on his call log of a 2-minute call with the bike shop the day before. We also found an email from the computer shop in his email, and when we clicked on the account information, it opened in his Safari and had his username and password saved. When we went into the account, the $2,000 computer was in the basket. Despite all the evidence against him, he has blamed his younger brother. His younger brother was on my laptop in the lounge with me when the 2 incidents happened, so we know it was not him. My husband had left his wallet out, and the card was still there, so we know the card has not been dropped or stolen. My eldest swears it was not him. This is a significant amount of money that we cannot afford, and we are very lucky to have got most of it. My question is, would I be the jerk if I go to the police? Info. What are you expecting the police to do? Sounds like your son needs therapy. Seems like she somehow wants her son to be responsible for the money spent instead of her. I don't know why they didn't just return the bike or why the store would have allowed a 13-year-old to use someone else's credit card. Karen wife refuses to let my homeless mother move in with us. My mom just lost her housing a week ago and has 30 days to find somewhere else to live. She was on state housing and disability, but it was turned off without warning. We're trying to fight it currently, but from as far as I can tell, she's not the only person this has happened to this month. Like hundreds of elderly are going through this. She has lupus, so she has no job. She's 59. We have a 5-bedroom house, 3 kids who have their own rooms, and then a 4th bedroom we use as a shared office. I suggested letting my mother move in here and letting her stay in our office, which would have to be relocated to maybe the attic. She immediately said, "No, not happening." I remained calm despite her hostility surrounding the issue bothering me. I tried coming up with every alternative imaginable, and she shot down every single idea. I found it a little weird because her and my mom get along really well, like I'm pretty sure my mom likes my wife more than she likes me. So I finally snapped and asked her what her problem was and why was she acting so miserable. She snaps back with, "Last I checked, you're fully aware that I refuse to be around your mother's dog. Her dog is not coming here. Her dog is not allowed here. She won't get rid of her dog, therefore she has no place here." I honestly hadn't even thought about the dog up until this point. My mom has a Rottweiler who's like 2 years old, and he's a big boy. My wife doesn't like the dog at all. She's been chased by Rottweilers in the past, but was never bitten, so she won't even give the dog a chance. She admittedly doesn't like any dogs outside of like retrievers, but I still feel this is rather ignorant. I told her she was being incredibly selfish for being unwilling to help my mother over a dog, and she absolutely lost it. She said that her life is not going to revolve around taking care of my disabled mother and take care of an untrained giant Rottweiler. She said she's also not chancing having this mutt around our kids while untrained, and she is absolutely repulsed that I'm not seeing how dangerous it could be. She said I'm an absolute jerk, and under no circumstances was she going to put my mother over the well-being of our kids, and if I can do that, I'd better see myself out. I think she's over the top, to be blunt. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Her concerns are valid, and you know full well that if your mother moves in, dog or not, she's never leaving. You're the jerk. Your wife is afraid of Rottweilers, and you are completely dismissive of that. I love Rottweilers and would never dream of forcing one to be around someone who's afraid of them, much less force them to live with one, especially if it's not properly trained. Plus, your wife knows that if mother-in-law moves in, she'll end up as her primary caretaker in addition to taking care of your 3 kids. You're the jerk. She absolutely should not have to be miserable in her own home. If your mom is desperate for a place to live, she has no right to make demands of the people willing to help her out. If she won't, even temporarily, rehouse the dog, she needs to look at other options. You're the jerk. So glad my hubby isn't a mama's boy like most of the guys we read about on Reddit. My mother-in-law lost her housing during lockdown, but my husband knew he better not dare to invite her to stay with us. The woman is nice and doesn't cause any issues for the most part, but hubby knows my home is my safe space. The last thing I want is some old hag lounging around my living room watching old people crap like Lifetime movies. She did suggest staying. What's wrong with Lifetime? You don't like Lifetime? They got good movies on there. She did suggest staying with us at one point, but hubby shut that down real quick. He knew if he even thought about letting that old jerk stay with us, he'd be a single man again, and I'd be the one keeping the kids in the house. Mama's boys need to grow up and realize that once you're lucky enough to actually find a woman who will marry you, she should be your #1 priority and not your mommy anymore. Well, don't you sound pleasant? Manager ends my job at the company I loved. I ended his career forever. Background: I worked at a very big tech company for a very long time, like decades. Over the years, I had worked my way up from being a noob to a kind of specialist fixer. I became fairly well known internally as a security and emergency response person. I got assigned the bad or unfixable projects, many of which made news headlines. I have so many stories that I can never tell publicly, sadly. Suffice it to say that multiple senior vice presidents and various divisions got to know who I was, because I effectively wrangled gnarly and complex problems and herded many intense tech nerds together to resolve big things in multiple divisions over the years. It was so fun. At the time of this story, I was working on a small security team in a product engineering division. It was a somewhat turbulent time, and our team of 8 had weathered multiple reorganizations and had so many manager changes. It was a lot, but we kept our heads down and did the work, and we all got on just fine. Sidebar, and relevant later. One of the better managers assigned to run our team immediately assigned me a huge and complicated and urgently important project to manage. It would involve people in 6 different divisions, had seriously big legal implications, and our senior VP wanted it to happen by an aggressive deadline within like 4 to 6 weeks. Oh, and my manager was leaving imminently on a long-planned vacation, so he apologetically would be away for the next 3 weeks and unable to assist. The project was to do something big and technical, and which had never been done before, so no one was entirely sure how to do it, who all it would require, what steps in what order, and some of the key players had what we gently called difficult personalities. Oh, and by the way, it would definitely make international news and cause a ripple in the industry when we did it. No big whoop. Manager was a decent guy, and he felt bad about leaving me with this thorny mess. And I did it. We got all the people from all the divisions in one room and mapped it out on a whiteboard. It took days, and hashed out how to do it before the deadline. Actually, well before for bonus points. And we lined up everyone to get it done. Before we pulled the actual trigger on the very big thing, I had to attend a meeting with the VP and executive leadership, several layers of management above me, and with the legal team to present the plan and to assure all of the executives that we were ready and had it all handled. So I looked the VP in the eye and assured him that I got this, and then I did it. The team did the big thing sooner than the deadline. It was flawless. We rocked out. Just another day at the office. The inept manager. A few months after that epic project, our good manager left us for another role and someone new moved over from an unrelated division out of nowhere. We'll call him Inept Manager. Inept Manager did not know anything about security. He did not know anything about emergency response. He didn't know anything about what our division did. In fact, no one on our team had ever heard of this guy. He was that worst kind of middle manager, self-important, dismissive of everyone, cares most about appearances and ego, micromanages stuff he doesn't comprehend, and just makes everything worse. But he apparently knows people, and those people get him job assignments because of politics, loyalty. He certainly didn't have any skills or experience for our team. Ugh, the guy was the worst. One of Inept Manager's weird quirks was that he didn't think it was appropriate for our team to disagree with or correct each other in front of other people. Things in tech, specifically product development, move pretty quickly, and things change all the time. So if some of our team was meeting with someone from another team, and someone says something like, "So we decided to make the sky green, and we're on schedule," and someone else on our team chimed in to say, "Actually, that's changed. We decided that the sky is now going to be blue, and we pushed the deadline back 2 weeks. That just happened in an earlier meeting." "Oh, okay, cool." Inept Manager would interrupt and say, "We clearly need to get on the same page. Let's end this meeting right now and reschedule when my team has all the facts straight." What? That's insane. We'd literally never have any meetings if we waited until everyone knew all of the same information all the time. Other teams would routinely leave meetings with us with inaccurate info, which affected release schedules, resources. It was just a mess. Inept Manager hostility. Shortly after Inept Manager became our manager, he started being really hostile to me. Not to everyone on the team, just me. As far as I knew, I hadn't done or said anything to earn his hostility. Suddenly, after 20 plus years at this company, I could do nothing right. While this jerk didn't actually understand most of what my job was, he was sure I wasn't doing it right, and he was quick to tell me so, and often in front of others, to the point that my coworkers would take me aside to ask what was going on. I didn't know either. The thing is, I was the only woman on the team, and I have a disability. Now, I've been through some things working in higher tech over those decades. It was very much an old boys club back then. And, I was fine. I'm not one to claim discrimination at the drop of a hat or for no reason. However, when I was trying to piece together the cause of this dude's hostility, some of his comments were very inappropriate and not at all subtle. He also didn't like that due to my disability, and frankly my seniority, I was given one of the few offices with a door on it in our new building. The rest of our team was in open floor plan cubicles, which everyone hated. He was incensed that I got an office and he didn't. I had more seniority than just about anyone, so even without my disability, I'd have scored the office ahead of him. Note that other men in our division got offices too, but again, seniority, and that bothered him less. But I was the only woman on our floor with a door, and I was his subordinate. His ego did not like it, not one bit. He threw a fit about it repeatedly. There were lots of other things he said. My favorite among them towards the end was him reprimanding me for my bad attitude in a meeting we just had. Inept Manager had told me beforehand not to say anything during that meeting because he was insisting on sharing incorrect information again and he knew I'd want to correct it. So I sat quietly and kept my eyes on the PowerPoint presentation or on the floor nearly the whole time. When I asked him how I had had a bad attitude when I hadn't said anything, as he had requested,
"I didn't like the look on your face."
Okay, dude. After realizing there was nothing I could do to make this guy happy with my work and to lose his hostility, I finally went to HR to go on the record. I knew they wouldn't do anything about it, but I wanted to document it at least. So, predictably, they told me to work harder at getting along with Inept Manager. And because it wasn't my first rodeo, I went back to my office and emailed HR saying, "Thanks for meeting with me about my concerns about Inept Manager. I fear his bias will reflect negatively in my next performance review. HR should be aware that there is a real problem here, and I hope you'll take steps, etc." Which of course they didn't, but now it was on the record. The axe falls. And then a few months later, he gave me a terrible performance review as expected. Long story already long, he was trying to fire me for underperformance. Unfortunately for me, the company had started rounds of layoffs all over, and it was the worst possible time to be looking for another job internally. And now I had a bad performance review on my record too. I went back to HR and said, "That thing I said I was worried would happen when we met 6 months ago, that happened, exactly as I said. Now what?" HR once again was no help. Also, they had done literally nothing. But hey, it was on the record again. Helpful for the attorney later. Blah, blah, blah. When I realized I couldn't find a new gig at my company because of all the layoffs, I scored a new job for much more money at a different local tech company, and pretty quickly. I live in a tech-heavy area. There was lots of shuffling between 3 to 4 big companies during this time period, and we'd often bump into other company veterans at these companies. It was a small world. With my track record and references, it was super easy. After that was lined up, I called an unemployment discrimination attorney to negotiate my exit from the company I thought I'd work at until I retired. Sad face. Because I had documentation with HR explaining how an inept manager had been mistreating me going back for some time, and because they had done nothing about it, and because there were witnesses who confirmed his behavior, they had no leg to stand on. They agreed to write me a relatively nice check to go away and to not sue them, and I agreed to not talk about the details of my separation agreement. I went down to my lawyer's office and signed the agreement. I looked to see who had signed the agreement for the company. I assumed it would be someone in HR, but it was still blank. I'd eventually get a copy once someone there signed it. I took my check and packed up my office and left. Bye, old company. I started my new job a few weeks later. Karma begins. This was August of that year that I left. I got my copy of the executed contract in the mail in October. Who signed it for the company? Not HR, but my executive VP. The one who asked for the urgent, highly important, legally complicated project. The guy I looked in the eye personally and then delivered on this very big thing he personally asked for, before the deadline he asked for. That is who signed off on my separation agreement. I suspect that he had no idea until that moment that I was gone, and I imagined that he likely had many questions about what had happened. And also, why did they have to pay me a chunk of money on the way out? Whoops. I laughed when I saw it. Since the VP knew me and we had some history, and Annette manager was new to the division and was one of hundreds of middle managers he had likely never heard of, I'm guessing Annette manager had some explaining to do. I really enjoyed the thought of that. Karma for reals. Cut to November. As I mentioned, it was a relatively small tech company in the area, and those of us who worked in security, in particular at Company X, would often encounter other current and former colleagues at Company Y or Z or whatever. Heck, there was a ton of poaching going on between the companies. One day I got an in-company chat from someone who'd worked in security at my old company. We'll call her security colleague. She asked me if I knew someone named Annette Manager. Yes I did. Why? Because Annette Manager was appearing on security colleague's schedule to interview for an open management position the very next day. It seems that shortly after my former executive VP had signed my separation agreement contract, Annette Manager was actively looking for a new job at a new company. Security colleague asked me what I thought about Annette Manager. I said, I can't really talk about it for legal reasons, which, boom, everyone knows what that means. But if you wanted to ring my personal cell phone later this evening to catch up on old times, please do. She did. I, hypothetically, shared some stories with her about Annette Manager. I also told her where his hot buttons are, the appearance and ego thing, the dominant stuff, etc., and all about how he mistreated others, which was perfect since she was conducting the interview. I may have shared some specific scenarios and questions to ask, which I knew would set him off. I wished her luck, and for the love of all that is holy, to please call me after, when appropriate, and tell me how it all went. It did not go well for Annette Manager. When security colleague rang me, I couldn't wait. How did it go? Well, he got combative and angry and yelled at me, twice, during his interview to be hired as a manager. There were lots more details, now lost to time, except at that company, interview loops were assigned as such: strong hire for this role, hire but not hire for this role, no hire or no hire ever, not for any role. Annette Manager's interview was rated on the last one, no hire ever, blacklisted from any job ever at one of the biggest tech companies in the world, after being pushed out the door of one of the other biggest tech companies in the world. Shortly after that, it appeared that Annette Manager moved himself and his wife and kids a few states away to work at a smaller company in another region. It took less than 6 months from where I left my old company for him to be gone as well. What gets me, still, is that Annette Manager thought I was so inconsequential, so unimportant, that he didn't even bother to check and see where I landed after he forced me out of the company I loved. And when he had to look for a job himself shortly thereafter, it also never occurred to him that I'd have connections with Oh, thousands of colleagues I'd worked with over the years, some of whom could now be working at company X, Y, or Z where he was interviewing and where I had scored a huge raise for myself. To this day, he doesn't know why his interview at company Y tanked so badly. And since security colleague was not legally precluded from sharing stories she had heard through the grapevine about inept managers' problems, it's possible that other of our old security colleagues at Company Z and other companies in this area heard those stories too, which means he's unlikely to get a job at any major tech companies in the area, maybe ever. Definitely not at X or Y, and they are big companies, among the biggest. Am I the jerk for bringing my baby to her sister's performance? This has caused drama I was not expecting. I have 2 kids with my ex-husband Will, Penelope, who's 12, and Johnny, who's 10. A few years ago, I remarried Chris. We have a 6-month-old baby together, Lila. Penelope and Johnny live primarily with their father as he's closer to their school. They come to us on the weekends. Penelope is in the theater program at her school. I missed the fall shows because I was in labor and then had a newborn. Penelope understood as best a preteen can. Her spring show opened last week. Chris and Lila came with me. Will, Johnny, and Will's wife, Ariana, were already there. Will saw I brought Lila and got a weird look about his face, but Ariana shushed him and said, "Just let it go." Lila slept through the first half. A little before intermission, she awoke and was fussy. I began rocking her and trying to calm her while also watching the play. I got a few dirty looks from parents around me. I give them a "what can you do" shrug, as it's a baby. At intermission, Will suggested Chris take Lila home. I said she should sleep during the second half, and Chris said he wanted to watch the performance. Will started getting upset, but again, Ariana had him walk away. Lila did fall asleep again, but halfway through Act 2, woke up and started screaming. It was loud enough this time that it did catch the performers off guard. I quickly went into the lobby with Lila. When I tried to go back in, once she stopped screaming, the usher wouldn't let me, saying once a person leaves, they're not allowed back in to prevent interruptions, meaning I missed Penelope's solo. Penelope refused to see me after the show, nor accept the flowers we bought for her. I watched her leaving with Ariana, who was consoling her. Will met me in the parking lot. He was upset. He said I never should have brought Lila, pointing out he and Ariana got a sitter for their kid. I said I didn't want to leave Lila, and I felt it was good we all supported her. After missing the fall show, I wanted to be there for my daughter. I added it was just a middle school performance. It isn't the end of the world. He gave me a disgusted look and walked away. Penelope hasn't answered my calls or texts. This weekend, she refused to come over. Chris thinks we were in the right, but my parents are just as upset and called me a jerk. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. That was not an appropriate place to bring a baby, so you should have gotten a sitter. Lila didn't know what was going on and certainly wasn't supporting her sister. And if you were going to insist on bringing her, Chris should have held her and been prepared to step out if she got fussy so that you didn't miss any part of Penelope's performance. You sent a loud and clear message that your new family with Chris is more important than your older kids. This is literally what I came here to say. Of course Chris thinks you two were in the right. He handled this worse than anyone. You and your daughter's relationship is going to take a big hit because Chris couldn't do what you were doing and make sure you got to watch the performance. But possibly worse than that is Will literally tried to fix your mistakes for you at intermission by suggesting Chris take your baby home. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. First, Lila is a baby and can't support anyone. You, however, are Penelope's mother and should do whatever you can to appropriately support her, such as having the foresight to get a babysitter or having your husband take charge of the screaming baby. Second, it's just awful that you've dismissed something so clearly important to Penelope as just a middle school performance. At 12, a solo performance is likely one of the biggest moments of her life so far, and you ruined it. Am I the jerk for dumping her dinner in the trash for being rude to me? I'm 44, a single dad to 2 kids, Audrey, who's 16, and Emily, who's 12. We have a great relationship, but Audrey can sometimes be rude and demeaning, saying cruel things casually when she's displeased about something or in a bad mood. Emily, her little sister, looks up to her, often mimicking her behavior, which obviously worries me. I cooked a nice Sunday dinner, and Audrey stormed downstairs in a bad mood for who knows what reason. She was being a downer, whereas Emily and I were cheerful. I asked her to improve her mood, please, instead of ruining the dinner. She turned to me and unleashed her anger. To quote some of her elegant words, "Can you stop lecturing for once? You're annoying as heck, and seriously, you're the one who ruins everything." I stood up, took her plate, and dumped it in the trash can. I told her since she can't bother to show me any basic respect, she should start providing for herself from now on. She said she'll make cereal, and maybe I was a jerk. I said no, that's my milk, and she should get a job to get her own groceries. I don't feel like I yelled at her. I felt I spoke calmly, but when she realized I was being serious, she got upset and started crying and ran to her room. We haven't talked since. Obviously she's mad at me, but now my younger daughter is mad at me too, saying I acted like a huge jerk to her sister. I of course don't see it that way. I don't tolerate being spoken to with such disrespect, and it did hurt me a lot hearing Audrey say these things to me that were uncalled for. So, was I the jerk? Obviously not winning any Dad of the Year awards, but will I be winning any Jerk of the Year awards? Edit. Forgot to include that my daughter also made a snide comment about the food not looking good, which was what triggered me to throw the plate away. Edit 2. I did ask her twice at the beginning what was wrong and why she was in such a bad mood. Her response was a sarcastic, "You wouldn't get it." I asked why not. She just sighed. Edit 3. Of course she's not starving. I was just trying to make a point to her. Edit 4. Vast majority of you think I'm the jerk. I'll apologize and give her cereal. You're the jerk. It's pretty clear where you went wrong as well. I asked her to improve her mood, please, instead of ruining the dinner. If someone is in a bad mood, asking them to not be in a bad mood and accusing them of ruining something is probably not the right approach. You're the jerk. I get being annoyed and I get punishing her, but you threw away her dinner and then told her to get a job to provide for her own food and wouldn't let her eat. Like, my dude, when was she gonna get a job on the spot to get a paycheck to buy dinner? I don't know. I don't really agree with withholding food from someone like that. You're the jerk. Throwing away someone's food should never be used as a punishment or used to make a point. You're a grown adult who apparently can't regulate your emotions. How do you expect your kid to? Should she talk to you that way? No, but she's probably going through something and could use some grace. I'm sure you have a lot on your plate also, but you're the adult. She's your kid. I'd apologize and work on your communication skills. Not the jerk. This is called parenting, which is something that none of you failures received while growing up. Stop making excuses for this little brat. When I was growing up, if we ever got an attitude like this, no dinner was not an unusual punishment. Believe it or not, one night of not eating isn't gonna hurt you. It's amazing how many of you act like babies and demand that people baby their kids. Oh no, you threw away her dinner? How is she going to survive one night without food? Stop making excuses for brats who show no respect. Letting your kids act like this will result in them growing up to be complete failures, like most of you who are tearing into OP for providing discipline. Yowza kanowza, tell us how you really feel. Entitled Kid and Parent at the Mario movie. No spoilers. This happened a few weeks ago when the movie first came out. I went to go see the new Mario movie, as I was really hyped for it, as I'm a pretty big Mario fan. It was pretty good in my opinion. And to celebrate, I decided to go dressed as Mario. It wasn't a really good cosplay, as I just threw on some old blue overalls, a red long-sleeved shirt, a replica of Mario's hat I bought at the Nintendo store in New York City, and some work gloves. I even brought a plush super mushroom that my late aunt bought for me in China. Anyways, I got to the theater, paid for my ticket, and got my snacks. A large bag of popcorn, some candy bars, and a blue raspberry slushie. However, the movie didn't start until 1.5 hours, so I just hung out in the small arcade they had there. While I was there was a boy with his mom, and he kept eyeing me and got all excited. Keeping with the Mario theme, let's call the mom Bowsette and the kid Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. Mummy, look, it's Mario. Bowsette. Yes, I know. Bowser Jr. Can I see him? Fine. So Bowser Jr. runs up to Mario, and that's when he sees my mushroom. Wow, a mushroom. Can I have it? Me. Sorry, this mushroom means a lot to me. But you don't need it. Yes, I do. Bowsette sees Bowser Jr. arguing with me and stomps on over there. Bowsette. Give him the toy. Me. Sorry, I can't just give it to him, as it means a lot to me. Just give him the toy. Sorry, I can't do that. But you don't need it. You're too old for it. After she said that, I just ignored them and grabbed my snacks and went to sit in the auditorium where the movie was playing. Shortly later, they walked in and sat on the row in front of me, and throughout the movie, Bowsette kept giving me the evil eye, but I just ignored her. I guess they forgot about me, because when the movie finished, they walked out of the room without looking at me, and after that, I never saw them again. Still enjoyed the movie, and if you're wondering about the mushroom, it's chilling right next to me on my bed as I'm writing this post. My sister demands I hire her to be my wedding planner. I, 26 female, am getting married to my fiance, 27 male, on June 24th of next year. We have done a few things on planning it, but it's very stressful and we both work full-time. Plus, I'm in grad school, so we just don't have the time. Well, I called my mom about 2 weeks ago and mentioned how hard planning a wedding was, and she told me that we should invest in a wedding planner. Duh, I can't believe we forgot these exist. She also said she could recommend one to us, but I told her I'd have to have a talk with my fiance about our budget and we'd see. Then we talked about other stuff, and that was pretty much how it went. Well, my fiance and I have talked with a few wedding planners since then, and we found the perfect match for us. She's been so great and so helpful, and I'm so thankful for her. I talked with my mom a few days ago and told her that we'd found a wedding planner, and I thanked her for the advice. Well, my mom told me that she was trying to nudge me to hire my sister, who's 29, as she's just getting into the wedding planner business, and that's what her recommendation was for. Now, I love my sister and I think she's great, but I also know my sister and she's not great on staying with jobs. She was not good taking orders and quit stable jobs. She started a resin business that didn't take off and she didn't want to market for it. She got caught into a pyramid scheme, which she barely got out of. My parents paid it off, and the last time I heard, 2 months ago, she was trying to be a nail technician. I told my mom that I love my sister, but I want a professional to do my wedding. Well, come to find out that my mom had me on speakerphone and my sister was in the room with her. This led to my sister grabbing the phone from my mom and telling me that I'm a stuck-up jerk and that I'm pretentious and I need to get off my high horse and other things. When my mom finally took the phone back, with my sister still yelling, she told me that I was being mean and unfair and that I should just give my sister a chance, to which I said no again because her attitude to rejection just solidified my opinion. My mom told me I was being judgmental and that she wouldn't answer my calls until I apologized to my sister and hire her to plan my wedding. My fiance is obviously on my side, but my dad said I should at least apologize. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The position was already filled before the sister offered her services. It would have been better to simply say that, but I don't blame you for, very reasonably, pointing out all the reasons that this was a bad idea. If you apologize, do it for you, not them. Do it for a drama-free wedding. But know 100% that you are not to blame. I told my brother-in-law he can have an opinion when he starts paying bills. I'm 35, male. My wife is 38, female, and her brother, Ian, is 44. He just lost his job about 6 months ago. When his lease was up in February, he asked if he could stay with us temporarily. My wife and I agreed he could until he found a job. Things were fine at first, but then he just started giving his opinion on everything. He asked if we could be quieter at night after 10 since we wake him up when we go to bed. It seemed like he was telling us when to go to bed. He makes requests for dinner daily, like we're his personal chef. I told him to make himself at home, and he's more than welcome to use the kitchen. He said he doesn't know how to cook. He asked us to get a different detergent because ours makes him itchy. I told my wife he can buy his own laundry detergent. He must have some money because he goes out with his buddies on Friday night. I could go on and on about his opinions. Things got worse, and Ian acts like this is his house and he's in charge. I was watching TV the other day, and he came into the living room and said he wanted to watch the baseball game. I said, "Doesn't the TV in the guest room work?" He said, "Yeah, but I like this one better." I kept my show on, and he stood there for a few minutes like he expected me to turn my show off, then went back in his room. I have my daughter, who's 12, this weekend, not my wife's daughter. Yesterday, my daughter asked us if her friend could come over today, and my wife and I said yes. Her friend was dropped off at like 11. They're basically watching TV and playing video games, not being loud or obnoxious or anything. Well, Ian walked into the living room and asked her friend who she was. Her friend said her name. Ian looked at me and asked to speak in private. We went in my office and he said, "It'd be nice if you cleared it with me before letting some random kids come over." I said, "First of all, she's my daughter's friend. Second of all, I don't need your permission. It's our house." He said, "Well, I live here too, and I don't want kids I don't know running around." I said, "You live here for free. You can have an opinion when you start paying bills." He went and talked to my wife after our conversation and then left. My wife said she knows his outspoken nature gets on my nerves, but it was rude to throw not working and being unable to pay bills in his face like that, and now he feels unwelcome. Honestly, good. He should feel unwelcome. Maybe then he'll get a job. Every time I tell him about a place hiring, he says,
That's beneath me. Or, I'm too smart to work there.
a job is a job. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your wife is the problem now. It started out as a brother-in-law problem, but once your wife took his side, she became the problem. His refusal to work is not your problem, and now it seems he's using weaponized incompetence to get his way. Honestly, good for you for not responding to the bit about clearing it with him. My long-lost daughter is demanding I pay for her college. It's been one heck of a month, so some things I say might not even make sense. I, 40 male, recently found out that I have a kid who we'll call Jane, who's 18. I wasn't convinced at first, but everything checks out. When she came to me, she told me that she just wanted to get to know her father. I wasn't really interested in a relationship, but I felt it would be cruel and unnecessary to deny her this. We talked for a while, and I didn't really say much, but it was interesting. So after we talked for a while, I asked her about her mother, Grace, who's 40, and she gives me her number. I really didn't want to have to call her, but I needed answers. So Grace and I decided to meet up at our local coffee shop. We have some small talk for a while before I ask her why she never told me. Silence. I ask again. Silence. I ask a third time, and she told me that she just didn't want anything to do with me and wanted to get back at me. I point out that all she did was deprive her kid of a father. I ask her when did she tell Jane? She says at age 12. So I get confused, and I'm wondering why she only contacts me now. So I ask her why. Grace says that she was angry that I wasn't present in her life. We talk some more about life before we say goodbye and go our separate ways. I don't ask Jane why she didn't call sooner because she was a hurting teenager, and that's life. So Jane and I spent the next week bonding. Then she sits down and asks to talk. I say sure, and I sit down. Then she goes on to explain about how difficult her life was living in a single-parent household and how money was always tight. Long story short, she asks me to pay for her university fees. Now, I'm well off enough to pay for it without struggle, so I asked to see her grades, and to be truly honest, they weren't very good. Not bad, but nothing to give a second look. I tell her that I'll think about it, and she says thank you. So here's where I might be the jerk. I don't want to pay for the fees because, in reality, she's just a stranger with my DNA, and I feel like Jane might just be using me. I mean, she's had 6 years to start a relationship with me, and is only doing so now that she needs money. I just want to wash my hands clean of her and Grace and move on with my life. I don't want Jane to think I'm her financial lifeline or anything like that. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit to add some stuff because of the comments. 1. I did a DNA test. It was what she wanted me to do to prove herself. 2. Child support laws are different in my country in the sense that A. You can't claim unclaimed child support if you had the option to claim it. B. Child support can't be settled after 18 unless the father knowingly disappeared, and that would take months to process, let alone prove. 3. Jane had the ability to contact me. I don't know how much influence her mother had on her choice, but I do know that I was a dial away. 4. I was never mad at Jane for not contacting me. I knew that she was a hurting teenager who doesn't know her father and could be scared to do so. I was confused in the moment. Not the jerk, but neither is Jane. Grace is a tremendous jerk to both of you. I do encourage you to seriously consider contributing to Jane's university expenses. Not to say you should or should not contribute, just seriously and honestly consider it. Think about her position. No father in her life, and a mother who won't answer any questions she's had for the first 12 years. Then who knows what context Grace gave when she finally did tell her. I'll bet she never said, I told your father about you because I wanted to spite him, and I didn't care what effect that had on your childhood, despite that being the truth. Instead, she undoubtedly made you into the bad guy. Jane had no way of knowing better, and you should be sympathetic to that. I don't think you're a jerk, no matter what you decide. Just don't do anything to spite Jane. She's had enough of that already. There's no reason OP should need to feel sympathetic or be a jerk for not being sympathetic here. Jane, while yes is his biological daughter, is really a stranger and only really reaching out for cash. This is my view. I'm also forced to wonder how much contact Jane will keep up after getting a payout. It's pretty crazy to ask for that kind of money only a week after meeting. Not the jerk. Best options are, all I can give you right now is this amount, or, I'm sorry, things may have been different if I had known I had someone's college to save for, but I have not prepared for that expense. If she takes out loans, which it sounds like it's likely if he doesn't agree to help for a large portion, he can always see if she sticks around and actually seems to want to get to know him without the option of major financial support, and then choose to pay off some portion of her loans when they are due down the line, assuming she continues to make an effort when the possibility of money isn't a factor. If he says, all I can give you right now is this amount, or, I'm sorry, things may have been different if I had known I had college to save for, she will either react by cutting contact because she was using him and got a no and that's the end of it, or she will stay in contact if she also genuinely wanted to get to know him. If she stays in meaningful contact and doesn't make a habit of asking for money or favors, then maybe he'll help her with her loans down the line. Once she's no longer a stranger who may or may not be reaching out just for a money grab, then he'll be able to have time to see whether her intentions were mostly good, whether there's a bigger place to be had in each other's lives, and can get to know her or find out her true colors without the pressure of that expectation hanging over them. Alternatively, I don't think it would be unreasonable to just gently refuse and cut contact if OP really wants to. Her mother had ample time and opportunity to include him in and prepare him for the responsibility, and she chose not to. While there's a lot of room to roll with the situation and see if there's any chance to make up some of the lost time and bond with her, ultimately her mom made the decision to cut him out until now, and any fallout from him not contributing or not wanting to be part of her life after missing her entire childhood is a result of her choice and her mess to clean up if he doesn't want to be part of their life at all. Yeah, it might feel bad for him for a while, but it's ultimately not his fault that he wasn't given the chance to make a meaningful bond with his kid to feel comfortable dropping large sums of money on her education. Am I the jerk for ruining a proposal at a wedding? So I, 27 male, am a part-time DJ. I mostly DJ for just family and friends. I'm not really a professional, just do it for a little side cash from time to time. Last weekend, I got invited to DJ on the cheap at a wedding for a friend of a friend. At the wedding, while everyone was on the dance floor, one of the guests, who we'll call Kevin, approached me and asked if I could play the song Golden Hour. It was an odd request because at the time, all the guests were literally hopping around and dancing, but I was told to take all requests, so I did it anyways. When I started playing it, the dance floor started to clear up, and then Kevin invited a woman onto the dance floor. They started slow dancing for a bit. A few people joined them, including the bride and the groom. Then at one part of the song, Kevin got down on one knee, and I knew right away that he was going to propose. I didn't think it was right, especially because they were in the middle of the dance floor with all eyes on them, and I kind of felt like if this happened, I would take the fault, because I was the one who put on the romantic song out of nowhere. So instead of letting that happen, as soon as he pulled out the box, I started to play Boogie and turned up the volume instead. After that, Kevin just side-eyed me and got up and everyone else sat down. After that, nothing else really happened and the tension was very thick. After the wedding, no one really brought it up, and I obviously thought that I wasn't the jerk, and the friend that was friends with the bride said that I wasn't. But then a bunch of the family started to message me. It turns out that Kevin was the bride's brother, and the family kept asking why I did that. I told them that proposing at someone else's wedding was not appropriate. They told me that I shouldn't have an opinion because I was just the DJ, and now Kevin got publicly humiliated because some people knew this was going to happen, so they were taking videos and live on Instagram so all their friends could see. I responded with, that would have made the newlyweds hurt, but then they came back with, you shouldn't have assumed that the bride didn't want that. That part got me thinking because I was mostly communicating with the bride about arrangements, and she was very chatty before the wedding, but after that, she kept giving me one-word answers, so I assume she's mad at me. But then again, when she paid me, she almost doubled the amount for what I was asking for with a generous tip. So I'm not sure if the bride actually knew. I think she would have told me. But am I the jerk for just assuming? ETA. A lot of people said to ask the bride and groom. I did, but like I said, their answers were vague. Bride said it was fine, but it was probably just to spare my feelings. I didn't want to push because she clearly had a lot on her mind in the moment. If the bride knew this was going to happen and approved it, she should have told you beforehand. Going with not the jerk, your heart was in the right place. Protect the bride and groom's day. Yeah, maybe hindsight is 20/20 here. But if I'm the guy proposing, I'm making sure every important person, like the DJ you're requesting a special song from, is in the know. Make sure one of the bride or groom tells them that it's chill if the guy uses their wedding as the spot to propose. Honestly, I'd want both the bride and groom to tell the DJ together that it's okay. Maybe I'm just an overanalyzer, but I would be playing out every possible thing that could ruin the proposal before actually doing it and making sure those things are figured out. And if I can't shore it all up, then I'm not proposing. Agree 100%. If I'm the DJ, ain't no chance I'm honoring a request like that without getting verbal face-to-face approval from bride and the groom. And I want a third-party witness there to verify, preferably one of the other vendors. Proposing at someone else's wedding is very tacky. What if the bride was put on the spot and she secretly is happy that you messed it up? Takes the pressure off of her and lets her have her own wedding. I think your bank account agrees, not the jerk. Sister-in-law gives me unwanted parenting advice. Huge mistake. I, 36 female, have a beautiful baby who's 10 months old, who was christened last Saturday. My twin and his wife, who's 41 female, flew in for the christening with my nieces, 7 and 5. They live in another state, and I paid for their flights because they live with a modest income and she's a stay-at-home mom. The day before the christening, when they arrived, my son was crying and we tried his usual self-soothing techniques, but he wouldn't stop. My sister-in-law said we should just give him his pacifier. I told her we don't use pacifiers and he's never had one. Over the next few days, it was a similar rodeo. Baby cry and we would use self-soothing techniques, and sister-in-law would mention how pacifiers would soothe him. Well, after the christening, upon her suggestion once again to give my crying son a pacifier, I snapped, and in a room full of friends and family, I said, I would never take parenting advice from a 41-year-old woman that still lives on her parents' property, cannot hold down a job so she's a stay-at-home mom, that my retired parents have to send money every month to help them make ends meet, and whose 5-year-old still uses a pacifier to soothe herself and proudly shows them off. A 5-year-old whose mouth is so jagged and ruined that she and my brother will probably have to ask me and my husband for money for orthodontics care because they can't afford it. She's a prime example of what not to do when raising kids. Well, obviously, the room was silent and she ran off crying, and she and my brother left. They only came back that evening, but she nor my brother said anything to me. They left the next day to the airport. My brother said I have to apologize, and it was unfair of me to throw their finances in their faces. While I apologized for that, I said I would not apologize for telling her the fact about my niece's situation, and I told him that on multiple occasions, both I and my husband, he's a pediatrician, have warned them about the negative effects of a pacifier on a kid. My brother told me to mind my own business, and I said I gladly would, as long as his wife minds hers. Now my parents are telling me to apologize again. Naturally, my friends are on my side. So internet, am I the jerk? Edit. 1. To those saying I'm a bad parent because my son is constantly crying, he's teething, and we have various self-soothing techniques we use, including self-soothing music, his Sophie, classic teething toy, his soothing support stuffy, etc. 2. Brother and sister-in-law asked husband and I, pediatrician and surgeon, for medical advice regarding 5-year-old niece still using pacifiers. We warned them on multiple occasions about the negative effects of pacifiers on kids her age. They just failed to implement medical advice. 3. I do not have a temper. I was very stressed. However, I will be reaching out to sister-in-law in a few days to speak with her directly and apologize for my hurtful outburst. 4. The comments about the finances. Yes, I am upset because my brother is upset about their finances and wants her to get a job to help burden the load. His words. He's in grad school after a layoff to get a better opportunity for his family. He wishes she would help. She stopped working 6 months into her first pregnancy and never went back. You could have said, "Thank you for the suggestion, but we choose not to use pacifiers, and I expect you to respect our parenting choices, even if you make other choices." Instead, you dropped a bomb, destroying her entire life. You're the jerk. Frankly, no apology is ever going to repair that kind of a contemptuous string of insults. If you intended to sever that relationship, mission accomplished. You're the jerk. It's a pacifier, and you made that into an opportunity to get dirty and personal. You went for the jugular over a pacifier. The criticisms you made do not reflect on her parenting. They're personal. Yes, a 5-year-old is beyond a pacifier, but guess what? No parent is perfect. You aren't, and there will be plenty of people who pass judgment on you for your choices too. You haven't described any behavioral issues, just a pacifier and janky teeth. Your baby doesn't even have teeth, So what does her employment status, living situation, and finances have to do with either of your parenting choices? Saying that she's a prime example of what not to do in raising kids based solely on socio-economical factors is really not cool. It seems like you just don't like this woman, and you were looking for an excuse to feel justified in making cruel and unnecessary personal insults. You were horrible to them over tiny comments about a tiny issue. I can't imagine how nasty you get over actual stuff. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. You seem oddly proud of your kid not using a pacifier. Pacifier use is actually recommended to help prevent SIDS. Your husband, the pediatrician, should know this. You're the jerk. Dang, girl, you went full psycho. People are annoying sometimes. Family is usually extra annoying. You don't respond by insulting every facet of someone's life just for being annoying. I mean, clearly you do, but that's what makes you the jerk here. May I suggest a pacifier? It may help soothe you in the future. Not the jerk. Obviously, your sister-in-law doesn't know how to read the room, and sister-in-law owes you an apology, not the other way around. Sounds like your parents want to keep the peace at any cost. Maybe it's time to go low contact with them until they learn to respect you and your parenting decisions. Hopefully, your brother and sister-in-law will be too embarrassed to ask you and your husband for any future financial support, but that's very unlikely because people like them rarely change. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't think a mom who has a 5-year-old with messed up teeth from still using a pacifier is the best place to get parenting advice. Am I the jerk for not sharing my inheritance with my sister since she chose to be adopted? I, 30 male, lost my mom when I was 5. Despite being so young, I had very vivid and treasured memories of my mom. It did not take to my dad dating a year after her passing well. My dad recognized that he knew this would be hard for me, but said that as the parent/adult, he knew what was best, even if it didn't seem that way at first, and that he'd thank me in the long run. Not long after that, he married my stepmom, Lucy, and when I began to act out over it, my dad said that parenting alone was hard, and that my sister, Jessica, who's 28 now, needed a mom. My dad even got my maternal grandparents to tell me that everything would be fine and how I needed to be a good boy. That was enough to get me to behave during the wedding, but once Lucy moved in and started redecorating, I started acting out again. My dad had had enough and just started punishing me whenever I acted out or made Lucy upset, as well as used the, "Jessica isn't acting out like this." And to be honest, Jessica was easily pleased and wasn't old enough to have had the same attachment to our mom that I did. It really upset me when Jessica started calling Lucy Mom, and it really ticked me off when Lucy started referring to me as her son. I always corrected it when she tried that around me. It got worse when I was 8 and Lucy had her own kids, because then my dad and her started pushing for adoption. Jessica, obviously, had no problems with it, but I refused. My dad had my maternal grandparents come in again and tell me that adoption wouldn't be that bad, but I still refused. Lucy and my dad pushed for the adoption anyway, and thankfully, the judge listened to my feelings in a private room and denied it. After that, therapy started, but it didn't last, so they also tried the, "Since you don't want to be part of this family, you don't get this," or "You can't come to this." But I was too stubborn for that method to work on me. The only one who I felt was on my side was my paternal aunt, who kept sticking up for me whenever she'd see what Lucy and my dad were trying to do. So when I turned 18, I went straight to her. It was when I became a legal adult that my maternal grandparents confessed that they were never okay with the situation, but my dad threatened to keep me and my sister away if they didn't show support. I was furious, so furious that I had my surname legally changed to my mom's maiden name, as I wanted nothing to do with my dad and only ever really talked to my paternal aunt. Fast forward to now, and my grandma has passed. Grandpa passed in 2020, and according to their will, only their legal grandchildren are to split the $250,000 inheritance, and since Jessica is legally Lucy's daughter, all she got was a framed photo of my mom and a letter. Jessica doesn't think it's fair and thinks I should share, but I told her to get money from her legal grandparents. My aunt thinks I'm being a bit harsh, so am I the jerk? ETA, because someone asked. It had been 2 years since the last time she had spoken to either of my grandparents, while she frequently called and interacted with Lucy's parents. Jessica was never close to my mom's side of the family because she'd rather spend time with Lucy's family and or didn't want to hurt their feelings. ETA 2, again since someone asked. When Lucy moved in, she and my dad took down all of my mom's pictures and got rid of her things. I wasn't allowed to keep any pictures in my room, and I would catch heat if I tried to celebrate my mom's birthday, mourn on the anniversary of her passing, and get punished if I didn't celebrate Mother's Day the way Lucy wanted me to. So yeah, she wasn't this saint of a woman who stepped in when my mom wasn't there. Edit 3, because I'm starting to see the same thing. I don't blame Jessica for choosing to be adopted now. I'm angry at her belief that she should get any money from my grandparents despite never showing an interest in having a relationship with them once she was 18. They reached out numerous times, but she never bothered, yet has the belief that she's entitled to their money. That's what ticked me off. 2. My mom has a sister who also had kids. I'm not getting the full $250,000. 3. No, I don't expect anyone from Lucy's side to leave me anything, nor would I demand Jessica to share. It would be completely hypocritical. Not the jerk. Interesting how she only wants to be family now that money is involved. Not the jerk. Your grandparents had plenty of time to change their will. They used the specific term legal grandkids for a specific reason, because they wanted you to inherit from them. They assume Lucy will inherit from her other grandparents, and she probably will. Or if your dad is still sore, you may be excluded from his will, and they wanted to make sure you were adequately covered. Okay, so a few things here. Firstly, you seem incredibly immature, and I had to genuinely do a double take at the end to check your age, because this post seems like it was written by a 16-year-old. Secondly, in instances where a kid is adopted by someone such as a stepmother, then grandparents' rights can actually be established in the courts for things like visitation. Also, your grandparents treated her like theirs, even if they didn't have a great relationship, for their whole lives. My thoughts would be that if the will were to be contested by your sister, then she would have a decent chance of success. You seem incredibly bitter that your sister, who has only ever known one mother, chose to be adopted by her, which on the face of it seems like a good thing. You pride yourself on acting out against Lucy and hating her referring to you as her son, even though legally she was acting as your parent. Jessica was 6 when she showed an openness to being adopted by the only mother she's ever known, and clearly you still can't stand her for it. That's genuinely one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. Has it ever occurred to you that your grandparents were actually okay with it, but then out of spite to your dad afterwards they said they weren't? That's a distinct possibility. You say that Jessica got a framed photo of my mom, but utterly failed to see that my mom was also Jessica's mom. Legal adoption after the passing of a parent is very different to people who are adopted through the system, so to speak. Everyone sucks here, apart from Jessica, but especially you. You can't stand your dad for moving on and bringing what sounds like a nice person into you and your sister's life. Your dad doesn't sound amazing by any means, but I honestly would take what your grandparents said about him with a pinch of salt. Am I the jerk for telling my husband my kids will not be supporting my stepson at sports games anymore? My husband and I have been married for 6 years and together for 8. He has a 15-year-old son, Lucas. Lucas' mother passed when he was 5 years old. I came into our marriage with Bryn, who is 11 now, and Miley, who is 9. Together, my husband and I have Alec, who is 5. So Bryn and Miley are Lucas' stepsisters, and Alec is his half-brother. Lucas has this trinket box with a couple of small trinkets inside of it that his mom left for him when she passed. He keeps it in his room mostly, but he likes to sometimes walk around with it in his hand. I've always told my kids it is not theirs. They are not to touch it unless Lucas says they can, and they cannot pester him about it. When we first got married, Miley was really fascinated with it and did want to touch it, but I nipped that in the bud since it was so special. Regarding the dynamic, Lucas is very closed off from me and the kids. I've always done my best to bond with him, but he is so withdrawn around me, and therapy, which we did when we first got married, did not get us onto a path of being close, though I never expected to be his mom, and I don't want that considered. About a month ago, we were having dinner, and my husband cracked a joke that Lucas seemed to care more about the trinket box than us after Lucas refused to let Alec get a closer look at it. Lucas said, very seriously, that the box meant more than me and the kids, and he would gladly trade us to save the box if anything happened to it. My husband was shocked Lucas spoke so seriously, and the girls got upset about it. Alec wasn't paying attention when it was said. My husband took Lucas aside to speak with him, and I spoke to the girls. They told me Lucas had said that before, that he would trade our lives to save his box, that we better hope he's never asked to save one of us or the box because the box would win. He said this to them on a few occasions over a period of time. They never told me because they didn't know how to bring it up. He told Alec the same as well. My husband said Lucas would need some therapy because he saw nothing wrong with saying that honestly. I told him he was saying it and more to the kids when we didn't overhear. My husband said therapy would get to the bottom of things. A few days later, Lucas is telling Bren he'd save his friends over the box, but not her. I told my husband about it, and he said it would be mentioned to the therapist. He had a consultation with one the next day. Lucas argued that he didn't need therapy, and just because he doesn't care about us or our lives doesn't mean there's something wrong with him. I told my husband that given Lucas' attitude towards the kids, they will no longer show up to cheer him on at any of his sports games or the like. My husband argued that we're still a family. I told him my kids do not need to cheer on the boy who has told them to their faces multiple times that their lives are meaningless to him. My husband thinks I'm overreacting, and I would be wrong to do this. Am I the jerk? Why does the topic of saving someone over the box keep popping up like that? Everyone sucks here except the kids. Honestly, it sounds like a toxic environment was brought by the adults. Your husband's comment during dinner should never have happened. Why would you ask something like that to a teenager who's clearly missing his mother? Therapy is not going to change the fact that the 15-year-old misses his mother, does not see you and your kids as his family, and that you actually don't know what he would do if a crazy scenario actually happened. I could tell you that if there was a fire, I would risk my life to save a stranger. But the truth is, I've never actually been in this situation, and I don't know how I would react. And I'm 32 years old. Your stepson is just 15. Just leave him alone and let your kids have the choice to go or not to his games. OP. Apparently, he wanted my kids to know their place and to not get the idea that they mean anything to him. His words. They say it always came out of nowhere. Though the time at dinner, my husband definitely brought it on by making that awful joke. Think instead of react. It's been long enough, he's forgetting. He's forgetting smells, looks, memories. He's maybe even forgetting what he felt, and he's doing this to convince himself how much she meant to him. What do you and your husband do to keep his memories alive? Pictures of his mom should be everywhere. If there's a box with things of hers in it, sit down with him. Tell him you know you will never replace her, but the thing about her love is, it's not a limited resource. There's enough love to go around. Explain when you had your second kid, you didn't love your first ones any less. Start opening the box at this point. Explain to him your heart just made room for more, just like your heart has made room for him. Somebody's been watching a few too many Hallmark movies. Start opening the box at this point? Absolutely do not do this. Am I the jerk for opting out of my best friend's wedding because they didn't invite my girlfriend? I'm 28, male. My childhood best friend, Brad, who's also 28, is getting married in late May to Vicky, who's 26. A week ago, on Easter, I received his wedding invitation, which only listed my name but not my girlfriend, Mary, who's 28. For context, Brad, Mary, and I have known each other since high school. We were in the same friend group. Mary and I live around 2 hours away from Brad and Vicky. Because Mary is a nurse, she doesn't always have the time to visit Brad and Vicky with me, so I go alone most of the time. But when she's able to, she'll join me. Mary has met Vicky and seen her around 10 times in the past 4 years that Vicky has been with Brad. Mary and I have been together for 6 years total, and we do plan on getting engaged and married once we are more financially settled. So I asked Brad if Mary is invited, and they just forgot to mention her name, to which he replied that Vicky is very strict about some rules, and in order to cut down costs, she's enforcing a no ring, no bring rule for the wedding. So since Mary is just a girlfriend and doesn't have a ring to imply some formality, then she's not invited. I reminded Brad that Mary and I have been together longer than he's been with Vicky, and that Mary is also his friend, not just my partner. He says he knows and tried to talk Vicky out of it, but she's very strict with that. I let it go, and I was in a dilemma about whether I should go to the wedding or not because of that. Mary told me she's not happy about this situation, but I should go to avoid more drama. So I called them to tell them I'll attend. Vicky picked up the phone and said she's sorry about making me uncomfortable by not inviting Mary, but these are the rules. I said I respect the rules. I'm not necessarily happy about it though. She then for some reason started being harsh about how Mary and I are not in a serious enough relationship if after knowing each other for so long and being together for 6 years, we're not engaged yet, and joked that after all, you never know what tomorrow brings, and I could break up with Mary any time since we haven't shown any signs of true commitment. I confronted her and told her that it's not her place to validate Mary and I's relationship, and that it's really low of her to use a dumb rule just to shame and micromanage long-term couples who for whatever reason haven't gotten married yet. I said I'll pass after all and not attend the wedding. She and Brad said I'm disrespecting them and their choices by choosing Mary over their wedding day, and I said I don't care. Keep your rules, and I'll keep my relationship, because it's more important than any exclusive rules that only exist in order to shame people. I've been receiving a lot of backlash from other friends for that choice who said I'm the jerk for being so bitter about something so small. But to me, it's not small. They invalidated Mary and our relationship. Not the jerk. What a stupid rule, and stupid in this instance for many reasons. First of all, Mary and Brad were in the same high school friend group, so it could easily be argued that she could be invited purely based on being his friend and totally independent of her relationship with you. Second, using marriage as a barometer of commitment is insane. So by Bride's logic, if cousin Chad got drunk in Vegas and married the girl he's been dating for 2 weeks, she would get an invite, while your girlfriend over 6 years would not? That's so dumb. To top all of this off, you were initially willing to let it go and just come anyhow, but then Bride had to double down and insult your relationship to your face. That just sucks. Groom needs to step up and be a good friend and tell Bride she's being ridiculous. My boyfriend played video games the whole night, so I left. So I'm 29, female, and my boyfriend is 30. He's a gamer. And don't get me wrong, I play video games myself and really enjoy spending my time playing video games. But since my boyfriend lives quite far away, we only see each other once a week. That's our quality time together. Yesterday, I worked the whole day, went to the gym, and then drove over to my boyfriend's house. I arrived there at 7-ish. When I came in, he was playing video games with his friends. No biggie. I told him I'm gonna take a shower and be right out. When I came back, he wasn't playing anymore, and instead asked if I'm hungry and wanted to order some food. I thought he stopped playing and we're gonna spend some time together now, but no. He ordered food and went right back to gaming. At about 9-ish, our food arrived. He was still playing. Fixed myself a plate, sat down to eat. He didn't join me. After I finished, I just got my stuff and told him I'm gonna leave because I'm not spending my evening watching him play video games. He finally took off his headset and told me, "Well, you could have said something. I was about to stop anyways." I told him that I feel like it's common sense to not be playing video games when your girlfriend visits you, and left. I was there for 2 hours, and the whole time he was playing. He hasn't tried to contact me in any way since. When I left, it looked like he was super upset, but he immediately started talking to his friends again before I was even out the door. And to be honest, I didn't feel like a jerk then, and I don't feel like one now. But the more I talk to my friends about it, the more I feel like I should have said something. Maybe to some people it's not obvious that someone wouldn't want to watch them play video games the whole night. I mean, it should be, but maybe it isn't. Not the jerk. See, with me, I'm the gamer and my boyfriend isn't. Playing video games and talking to your friends while your girlfriend sits next to you waiting for you to finally notice her, that's a major jerk move. Good on you, you left. Hope you had a nice evening without him. And somehow, whenever you say something about someone's gaming habits, it's always, "Well, I was about to turn it off anyways." Try to convince my wife to cheat on me? That's why you're a single mom right now instead of a doctor. I, 29 male, have known my wife, who's 30 female, and her best friend Jess, who's 29 female, since we were all 11. We attended middle and high school together, but I wasn't in their social circles at all. I was always one of the sort of nerdy, awkward kids, and the two of them were both very popular. My wife in particular was extremely popular because she was, and still is, extremely beautiful, kind, and intelligent. She was our student body president and valedictorian. Jess was also very pretty. I even had a tiny crush on her back then, and similarly popular. My wife and Jess have been best friends since kindergarten. My wife and I started dating our senior year of high school after we were paired together to complete a project in one of our classes. We realized that we got along really well, and she asked me out, and I definitely wasn't saying no to her. Jess, from the very start, did not respect our relationship and firmly believed that my wife could do much better. She has, in the decade plus since, consistently told me that my wife is out of my league, that I was lucky she settled for me so young, and that my wife belongs with a more attractive and successful man. Now, I'm the first one to admit that my wife is out of my league. She's far more attractive, makes more money, and is just generally an amazing human being. But hearing it so often doesn't exactly feel good. Jess also has tried to convince my wife to cheat on me multiple times and has even tried to set her up with other guys because she doesn't approve of my wife and I being the only partners either of us has ever had. Jess has a daughter who's 5 whose father bailed on her and raises her as a single mom. Jess actually dropped out of med school to raise her daughter once she realized the father wasn't going to be in the picture. My wife and I absolutely love her daughter and love having her over. Jess had a date on Saturday night, so she left her daughter with us for the night and came to pick her up on Sunday and stayed for lunch. As I was preparing lunch for everyone and her daughter was playing in the yard, Jess and my wife were talking about her date. Jess was going on and on about how attractive this guy was, how good he was at boom chicka want wow, and all of the details, but I just ignored it. Jess then looked to me and said, "You're lucky you locked her down when you were so young before she knew that there was better out there," and then turned to my wife and offered to give her the guy's number in case she wanted to try him out. I got really angry at that point, so I just said, "I doubt you know anything about better, since your taste in men is why you're a single mom and not a doctor right now." Both of them just stared at me in shock, and then Jess called me a jerk and left quickly with her daughter. My wife has been upset with me since, so I have to ask, am I the jerk? Edit. I just wanted to point out that my wife acknowledges that what Jess said was inappropriate, but thinks that what I said was unnecessarily cruel. It was always Jess's dream to be a doctor like her dad, especially after her dad passed, and now that's probably never going to happen. Jess has said this to me before, so I was aware of it, and my wife thinks it was uncalled for to press on something that's so clearly a pressure point for her. Jess also frequently bemoans the pain of being a single mom and about how all of the guys she goes out with ghost her as soon as she mentions her daughter. This is mainly why my wife is upset with me, because she thinks I purposely hurt Jess, while Jess's comments are a joke and aren't meant to hurt my feelings, which is probably mostly true. Alright, so I talked to Jess. Yeah, everyone said not to apologize, but honestly, sometimes you can acknowledge that you did something bad, even if the other person also did a bad thing. And yes, what I did was bad. Part of the reason I posted here in the first place was because I was feeling guilty about it, because I knew I'd been overly mean to her, and I was hoping that this post would make me feel less guilty. That didn't really work, unfortunately. So yeah, I was going to call her to apologize, but Jess actually beat me to it. Apparently, my wife had texted her and told her how I felt about everything she was saying, and that led to Jess deciding to talk to me herself. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed because my wife showed me the texts, and my wife didn't actually even tell Jess to apologize, so she did that on her own. I do believe it was genuine, especially because when she called me, Jess sounded pretty distressed. So she apologized, profusely actually. She said that she really didn't mean for me to take it seriously, and she felt really bad when my wife told her. I talked to her for a long time and basically detailed everything she had done to disrespect me and our marriage, and how I felt about all of it. She did apologize for it all and said that this was how she was with all of her friends. She told me all about how she would frequently tell my wife that she'd steal me from her, or that she had set me up with another woman that she knew. I told Jess she needed to stop that too. It wasn't right directed at me, and it wasn't right directed at her. She accepted that. She said the only reason she thought her jokes were okay was because it was so obvious we'd never cheat on each other. Apparently, Jess was never serious about giving my wife's phone number, and she would never actually disrespect our marriage like that. So at least she has some boundaries. Jess even said if my wife ever even came close to cheating, she'd be the first one to stop it, which I doubt, but there's no reason to rock the boat. I apologized to Jess for what I said, but I pretty much just flatly told her that her and I were not friends, so it wasn't appropriate for her to talk to me like that. She was pretty hurt by that, but said she understood. I then asked her if she had any jealousy towards our relationship, and she admitted that she did. She said she wished she had a relationship like that, and that it was pretty clear that my wife and I truly do love each other. So everyone saying she was jealous gets a cookie. So yeah, she apologized and so did I. Do I buy it completely? Of course not. Do I think at least some of it was performance, just crocodile tears? Yes, absolutely. Do I think she's sorry and will be better? I'd like to think so. Not the jerk. Your wife is the biggest jerk. She's allowed Jess to talk down to you for years and done nothing. You deserve better. You are out of her league. Jess is obviously a jerk for treating you like this and trying to get your wife to see other men for years. She should be banned from the house. OP. I wouldn't say my wife's done absolutely nothing. I mean, she has told Jess that her comments are inappropriate before, but I honestly think my wife has a hard time standing up to Jess in general. Not even just about me, but Jess also says inappropriate things about my wife, and my wife still doesn't say much. Not the jerk. And your wife should not be allowing Jess to disrespect you, especially in your own home. I think you should lay some ground rules out for your wife about how Jess treats you and what you're willing or not willing to tolerate. Jess is very much the jerk here, but your wife is a close second for not stepping in. Dude, everyone sucks here big time. She was also being nasty, and I'm shocked your wife and you apparently have been letting this dynamic go on for over a decade. But you said that in front of a 5-year-old? About her parents? To dunk on your wife's friend in the meanest way you could think of? Of course, that was a vindictive move. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Jess? Please let us know. If wife ever did actually want to cheat, Jess would totally encourage it and be happy probably. Always keep people like Jess out of your life, unless you're as crappy of a person as she is. Am I the jerk for telling my wife we can no longer afford to give our dog an allowance? We got a dog a few years ago, and training him was rough. He was already a full-grown dog and had never lived inside. Anyway, we'd give him treats and encouragement, and eventually he stopped being so wild inside and chewing things up, and he now uses the bathroom outside, etc. Like I said, we already give him treats for doing good things or listening to commands, etc. But in the midst of the initial training, my wife came up with the idea that we should give him a weekly allowance for being good and not having accidents, etc. This was set to $25 a week. Of course, we didn't give him the cash. Instead, she'd take him to PetSmart, and whatever he started sniffing or seemed to like, she'd buy, or she'll get him special treats beyond what we already have at home. I thought it was silly then, but whatever. I was just happy when we'd go a week without him going to the bathroom on the carpet or chewing up a pillow, so I agreed. And it's been this way for years. But now, money is tight. We can't really afford $100 a month extra. Not only that, but that money takes priority over our own allowances. For instance, I wanted to go out to eat last week, but because I have to set aside $50 every paycheck, my wife said we couldn't go, otherwise we wouldn't be able to essentially pay our dog. Not to mention going outside to the bathroom or not chewing things up is second nature for him now, and it's not like I don't want to buy him stuff, but we're barely making ends meet at the moment. $50 a check is a big expense. I brought this up with her last night, and she got very upset that I would even suggest not rewarding him, that I was being selfish for wanting to spend the money on myself. I told her we already buy him food and treats, and he already has 30+ chew toys, and that he doesn't need a bigger bone every week. He doesn't need gourmet food all the time. None of this is even including relatively frequent dog spa visits. She told me I shouldn't have let her get the dog if I didn't want to take care of him. But I do take care of him. We go on walks, play in the backyard. He has a whole room in our house with chew toys and a big bed. I think it's unfair to say I'm not taking care of him because I can't afford to give him a luxurious lifestyle anymore. Or that I'd like to go out to eat or have a little luxury myself every once in a while. But maybe I'm in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. Additional info I meant to mention. My wife cannot have kids due to a medical issue that would put her at high risk and was devastated when she found out, as was I. But we also cannot afford to adopt or even have that desire right now, to be honest. Our dog, I think, was her way of coping with this and being a mother in some sense. So he is like our kid. I love him too, but she's attached to him in a way that is much deeper than what I would say is typical. Edit 2. She does not believe the allowance is teaching him anything. It's just her way of doting on him. She knows that he is not associating it with good behavior, so it's not an attempt at teaching him anything. More of, he's been good, so we should do something good for him. Edit 3. Just going to answer a few more questions by copying my responses. Why doesn't she get a job? Certainly something we could look into, and not something she has said she is opposed to at all. We were completely fine before all of this inflation, but everything going up by a little to a lot has really strained us. It took quite a bit of time to even realize it was happening really, because we had had a little bit of a cushion, and when you are slowly breaking even or dipping in 10 to 20 a check, I just didn't realize how little wiggle room we actually had. Now I'm just looking at what expenses are the most frivolous and what I can cut out. So really, it's been the last couple of weeks to a month that I've begun stressing about it. Dog allowance? I do think a lot of people in here are unfairly criticizing her because of the phrasing of dog's allowance. This is really her allowance to spend on our dog. I think maybe I've done a poor job communicating the finer details, which wasn't my intention. Why doesn't she get out more or make friends? She does take him to the park and on walks, but also she's very introverted. I've tried suggesting she hang out with her friends more, but she rarely ever does. Plus, most of her friends have kids now, and she doesn't admit it, but I know it hurts her. A couple of them didn't even want kids, and I think she just feels jealous or like it's unfair. Not that they have kids, but that she can't. Not the jerk. I love my dogs, but this is insane. Your dog can play with the stick you find outside. He doesn't need expensive treats every week, and he only needs healthy, not the most expensive, foods. Good grief. Not the jerk. Based on your edit, your wife needs therapy. She is overcompensating for not having a kid by focusing on spoiling the dog. Bottom line, you can't afford anything extra right now. Maybe that will change in a few weeks, but you can't afford it right now. If she wants to continue to spend $100 a month on the dog, then she can sacrifice something else if it's really that important to her. You are not neglecting the dog. He sounds cared for and in a loving home. Not the jerk. She's prioritizing your dog over your relationship based on what you're saying, and it's completely unfair to suggest you don't care about the dog. I think it's good she loves him so much, and it would be nice if you could give him all of the extras, but it does not sound like you are in a place to do so financially, and dogs don't need all of that to feel happy or loved. My roommate's entitled boyfriend demands to park his car in our driveway. I'm an undergraduate college student, and I live with 4 other undergraduate college students. All of us are 20 to 22 female. We have a pretty decent 5-bedroom house with a small yard and 2-car driveway with a garage, which we use for storage. For a college town, we live in a pretty nice area, but parking can sometimes be a nightmare. All 5 of us have long-term boyfriends. 4 out of 5 of us have cars. When we moved into the house last summer, we agreed that the driveway spots would go to 2 of the roommates. Our 5th roommate, A, was one of the roommates that was promised a spot. Unfortunately, she was T-boned just before we moved in and her car was totaled. Even though she really needs one to get her to classes and internship, A's parents do not want to buy a new one, and she can't currently afford to buy one herself. Instead, she has her boyfriend drive her wherever she needs to go. A's boyfriend parks in the extra spot in the driveway whenever he comes over, and he's over for at least 6 hours a day, every day, and sometimes overnight. We, the 4 other roommates, have asked A and her boyfriend numerous times to park elsewhere, like at least 6 or 7 times. We've talked to both of them separately and together to no avail. No matter the amount of conversations, A's boyfriend continues to park his car in the one remaining driveway spot. This has been going on for almost a year. We, the 4 other roommates, have all told our boyfriends not to park in the driveway, and they have abided by our requests. A sees nothing wrong with this situation as she was promised the spot at the beginning of the summer, and she thinks that since they're sharing a car, he has a right to park there now. However, since the circumstances just happen to be that she doesn't have a car right now, the other 4 of us think that if the spot should go to somebody, it should be someone whose name is on the lease for our house, as 3 of us could really use the extra driveway spot. When A's boyfriend isn't parked there, we rotate who gets to use it. Of course, this rarely happens. It got pretty heated today as one of my roommates came home to see A's boyfriend in the driveway again, and she said that if it happens one more time, she'll be calling the police. I really don't want the cops to get involved, but I am kind of fed up of him parking there and feel a little disrespected that she won't just ask him to move. Maybe I'm just being too harsh. Are we being unfair? Are we the jerks? Edit. Here's some more info regarding why we promised her the spot. We originally agreed to let her have the spot because she had a small sedan, and we did not know if any of the remaining 3 roommates' cars would even fit in the driveway. 2 pickup trucks and a large SUV. This was prior to us moving in. Once we moved in, however, we realized that the driveway was long enough that any of our cars could fit, granted only 2 at a time, and we loosely started who rotated. This was until her boyfriend started parking there and she claimed that he shouldn't have to move. Not the jerk. The parking spot is for the people on the lease. If the person on the lease is no longer parking there and there's no plans for that to be changing anytime in the near future, the parking space should go to someone else on the lease. Am I the jerk for being annoyed at my girlfriend after she turned off the power during her cooking while I was gaming? I, male 24, have been dating Helen, female 22, for 2 years, and we moved in together 2 months ago. This is my parents' old second home. My parents gave it to me when I moved out of the family home 5 years ago. Helen and I are very happy with this house because it's comfortable and well located. There's just a little problem with the kitchen. There are 2 ovens, one big and one small. The small one works well, but sometimes the big one cuts off the power when it switches off. You just have to turn the power back on the meter. It's not every time, maybe once every 5 times, but to avoid that, I always use the small oven which was more than enough when I was living alone. When Helen moved in, at first, we took turns cooking, but she quickly insisted to manage the cooking alone. She thinks my cooking is a bit too basic. Her parents own a restaurant, so I guess she has higher standards and she cooks better than I do. I once suggested that we could cook together sometimes so I could improve, but she doesn't want that because she finds me too messy in the kitchen. I warned her about the big oven and to prioritize the smaller one, or to let me know before using the big one. I like to play Football Manager on my computer before dinner, and it would be a shame to have a power cut at this moment. If she tells me beforehand, I can save my game in case of a power cut. 2 weeks ago, Helen used the big oven without telling me, and the power went out while I was playing. I gently reminded her to warn me next time, and it's okay. I had saved a few minutes before, and everyone can forget or mess up. Yesterday, she wanted to make cookies and used the big oven again without telling me. I was playing, and I hadn't saved for several in-game weeks. Stupid, I know. So it was lost. I was annoyed, and I asked why she didn't warn me. Instead of apologizing, she said aggressively to get over it, that I shouldn't get upset about that stupid game. After all, cooking the dinner was much more important. I got angry and answered that she shouldn't disrespect my hobbies like that, and she could just enjoy her so much more important dinner alone, and I stormed off. I went to visit a friend who's 24, male, to vent, and I ended up sleeping there. I told my girlfriend by message that I will sleep there and it's best to talk tomorrow. My friend thinks that Helen messed up and is in the wrong, but this morning I received a text from a friend of Helen calling me a huge jerk. After reflecting on it, I started to feel bad. Maybe I did overreact, or I was completely in the wrong. Everyone sucks here. Fix the electrical issue, save your game, don't complain when someone is making your meals while you're playing games. Apologize for overreacting and not handling conflict appropriately. Don't storm off. She should apologize for not telling you she was using the big oven and for getting angry at you when you pointed it out. You should also ask if she's upset that you are gaming while she's doing chores and work out that issue. Everyone sucks here. Get the oven fixed. That's a problem. Perhaps also buy a small UPS for your computer if you're unwilling to do that. Now, if you went into the kitchen ranting about losing your progress, then it's only you who is to blame. But she, according to your side of the story, overreacted. However, storming out of the house over something this trivial is ridiculous. You aren't 12, and it makes me question the reliability of your point of view. You're the jerk. She's in the kitchen making your dinner while you're playing games, and you're angry that she forgot to ask your permission? That's not reasonable. You overreacted. It's a game. If it bothers you that much, get the oven fixed and get some cooking lessons. It's amazing to me how many of these posts are based on an argument starting over gaming. Grow up and fix your electrical before your house burns down and you don't have a computer at all. Am I the jerk for being angry that I wasn't asked to be in the wedding party? I'm 28, female, and one of my best friends, Mark, 28, male, just got engaged, and he and his fiancée are planning to get married next spring. For context, Mark and I have been good friends since high school. My boyfriend, who's 28, has also really bonded with Mark over the past 2 years of us dating, and they regularly go golfing together. We have also done a lot of couples vacations and dates and outings together, and we were seemingly very close to Mark and his fiancée. My boyfriend and I just recently went to their house for a party, and Mark and his fiancée asked my boyfriend, whom they know through me, and only for a couple of years, to be in the wedding party as a groomsman. I was not asked to be a bridesmaid, so I would not be involved in the wedding party at all. When I asked Mark about this, he said it was because they wanted even numbers, 5 groomsmen and 5 bridesmaids for the wedding party, and that his fiancée already had enough bridesmaids. I thought for sure I would be asked to be in their wedding as a bridesmaid, seeing as they were my good friends, and I would have 100% included them in my wedding party if I were the one getting married. So not only was I not asked to be in their wedding party, but my boyfriend, whom they had known for all of 2 seconds, was. I felt very hurt that they would ask him to be a part of their big day, but not me. I confronted Mark about how hurt, sad, and angry I was about this, especially because I don't know if my boyfriend and I will even still be together a year from now. Mark told me that he was sorry that my feelings were hurt, but he and his fiancée don't want to apologize for doing what they want with their wedding. Mark told me that this situation has impacted our friendship, especially since he doesn't think they have anything to apologize for. My boyfriend declined to be a groomsman, and we haven't spoken to Mark since. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to clarify, I never expected to be asked to be in their wedding. Of course, I would have loved to be in their wedding party because they are my friends. I've been friends with Mark since I was 16 and friends with Alyssa, his fiance, for going on 8 years now. And I would love to celebrate their love and happiness, but I never ever demanded it. If they never would have asked either of us to be in their wedding, I would have been totally fine with that. It's that they asked everyone else in our friend group to be in it, including my boyfriend. Everyone except me. When Alyssa, Mark's fiance, talked to me about it, she said the only reason she didn't ask me to be in the wedding was because of the matching wedding party numbers, which was disappointing and hurtful. I totally understand that it's their wedding and they should do what they like, but I also hoped they wouldn't exclude me like that because of wedding party numbers. I know everyone says to not make it about me, but what do you do in that situation? Not say anything at all? I just felt a little blindsided. Maybe Mark and I weren't as close as we thought. Perhaps it's all for the best. Note: people are taking the boyfriend bit way out of context. My boyfriend and I have been off and on because of long-distance issues, but we love each other deeply. He's currently living back home, but that might change in the near future. He might have to move across the country for work, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to uproot my life and move with him yet. That's why I'm not sure where we'll be a year from now. It's all up in the air currently. You're the jerk. Groom has been socializing solo with your boyfriend for 2 years, which you changed to all of 2 seconds at the end of your story, and selected him as a groomsman. No mention here of you socializing solo with the fiance, and she probably picked people she was closer to. You're not owed a spot in the bridal party just because your boyfriend got one. You're being a bit dramatic here over a wedding that's not even yours. I know I'm going to get massively downvoted for this, but after going back and forth, I'm going with everyone sucks here rather than you're the jerk, because I feel like ultimately your friends are being the bigger jerks. Mark and his fiance should have known ahead of time that it's kind of insulting that you've been his good friend since high school and he's including your boyfriend in his wedding party and not you. I think the considerate thing to have done was to not include you both, or at least have a proper conversation with you about it. I think you crossed the line by expecting to be a bridesmaid, confronting him about it, and saying that stuff about your boyfriend. The last thing was really not cool. Isn't it amazing how much people fight over weddings? Not as amazing as how much money people waste on them. Boss tries to give disciplinary action for working too hard. Midway through my career, I found myself working for the most prominent private college in my state. I was in the IT department and was in charge of maintaining a few servers and all of the technology in classrooms. Every summer, we would receive our budget for the year, and the part of the budget I managed was spent mostly on upgrading the audio and visual presentation systems in the classrooms, and most of that work had to take place during the summer. This is fine, normally, but our college administration had created a ticking time bomb for me a few years before. They had decided to spend about $100,000 on a few classrooms, but did not allocate any money in our budget to replace that equipment when it would eventually fail. I had been there for 5 years, and now that equipment was starting to fail. Increasing our budget was not an option, despite faculty growing to depend on the equipment in these spaces. I was left to figure out how to make the same budget replace all of the equipment in those spaces, as well as the normal set of classrooms that would need to be upgraded elsewhere. Fine, I was up for the challenge. I had to simplify and purchase more value brand of equipment and do extra work to cut corners. A couple of weeks of shipping delays for the majority of the equipment saw me with roughly 1 month to rip out, replace, rewire, and configure around 15 classrooms, as well as update and test all of the existing classrooms within about a month before the semester began. Realizing the amount of work ahead of me, I began working. I came in every day of the week for 28 days straight, working 8 to 10 hours to ensure that when the semester began, the professors would have working equipment. I was salaried, so I did not have to clock in. This gave me the freedom of scheduling work as little or as much as required. I worked myself sick and was literally sick at the end of the 28 days. My supervisor was a guy we recently hired. Let's call him Gus. Near the beginning of the semester, while testing equipment, I realized that the audio driver in a common model of computer we have in the classrooms was corrupted. Investigating it, I realized that the computer manufacturer had corrupted drivers on their web server where we downloaded it from. I asked my supervisor, who was in charge of managing the image deployment server, to rebuild the image with a non-corrupt version of the driver I had provided him. He said he would. I swing by the next day and asked him if he had completed the rebuild. He had not. I tell him I really need it as the semester loomed closer and closer, and he tells me he will work on it. Next day, nothing. Day after that, nothing. Finally, he figures it out, and I continue my work. He must not have liked being pressured, and perhaps the perception that he was incompetent. He must have gotten to him. He decides to power trip and call me into his office and ask why I was working so much. I explained the administrative oversight a few years prior, shipping delays, cheaper equipment, extra required work, and his delaying of a working image. I tell him, look, I came in day after day after day asking for that rebuilt image. Each time I said day, I'm poking my finger straight down on the edge of his desk, enough that it makes a sound to emphasize that those delays hurt the work I was doing. He wanted to find some personal failing that he could pull out some form of disciplinary action around. I gave him none. Eventually, he ran out of ideas and I left his office, not thinking much of it. Gus, however, was a jerk of the highest order. He would follow our IT director like a puppy. He joined a band with my IT director, so my work situation was not exactly fair. The semester began, and not a single issue in all of the classrooms was reported. I was proud of my work I was able to complete, given the challenges. The second day of the semester, my IT director calls me to his office. There, Gus is sitting beside him, and they both want to talk to me. I don't like the looks of this. My IT director starts asking me about why I was working so much. I explained to him, as I did Gus, the various factors that made this summer's work extra challenging. This destroyed any valid criticism they could muster. Gus goes on to say that he innocently inquired about my work and that I became violent, talking about the gesture I made on his desk, illustrating his failure to do his work in a timely manner. I demonstrate exactly what I did on the IT director's desk to show how ridiculous this claim was. My IT director wanted to exert his authority, and they would not stop until they had something to discipline me with. Nothing I would say would change the result. I was to be in trouble for whatever transgression they imagined up in this meeting. I make sure to point out how long it took Gus to do the small task that I depended on, knowing I could have completed it in about an hour. He was incompetent. My IT director then alludes to the fact that I should respect Gus more, as he is my supervisor. Forget it, I think to myself. I then tell my director, it is as if Justin Bieber was trying to teach you about music theory. It's only going to upset you. This sudden, sharp, and in my opinion, hilarious comparison was too funny. Both Gus and my IT director immediately laughed, even though Gus was subject of this insult. Once they had stopped laughing, my IT director put on a more serious tone. He says that I could manage my time better, despite the unique circumstances of this summer's work. His voice gets really soft and slow while he's talking to me now. This is a trick he forgot he told me that he uses in arguments to make the other person seem like they're out of control. It's condescending, as if spoken to as a child, and now he's using it on me. He tells me that he wants me to take some time management class, also to take a couple days off and think about it. I just want you to think about it. However, he's going to need my keys and badge. Cue malicious compliance. At this point, he has provided me enough evidence that this is not a job I want to stay at. The absurdity of working so hard and for 28 days straight on salary with no extra pay and to be rewarded with a disciplinary action was too much. That in that moment I had thought about it. Without saying anything, I hand over my badge. I took all the many keys off of my keyring and set them on his desk. I have thought about it. I tell him in the exact same soft and condescending tone he used with me. And you can keep the keys and badge, I told him with the biggest wry smile on my face. I then walk to my office. He follows me, and I notice his eyes become glassy, as if he was hurt by the situation unfolding before him. He expected me to capitulate and accept his punishment for a job well done. He kept saying, I just want you to think about it, with each time becoming increasingly desperate, and I kept repeating, I have thought about it. He disappears back to his office with his little minion, Gus, to discuss damage control. I quickly pen an email to all my other coworkers letting them know I was leaving and that I enjoyed working with them. I had to work quick as I knew they would shut down all my accounts very quickly. I packed up my personal effects and left. Gus and my IT director offered to help me, trying to walk back the situation with some small gesture of goodwill, but I was gone. I had been there for 5 years, but I was willing to walk away the moment he tried to treat me so poorly. I found out a little later that the week before I left, A programmer we hired left after he treated her poorly too. I was not aware of the reason she left when she did, but our office manager shared that she quit abruptly like me, without anything lined up given his behavior. About a year later, I hear from the office manager that the IT director had left. Rumor is he was primarily working for another company while in his office at the college, effectively double dipping or making money for two jobs while only doing one. He had been caught doing so and was warned by the administration to stop. He opted to leave instead of owning up to his own dubious behavior. My only regret is that I didn't leave that job sooner. Karen tries to steal my bird from me at PetSmart. Be careful taking your bird out in public. Someone may try to steal it. I decided today would be the perfect day to pop the harness on Isadora, my sulfur-crested cockatoo, and take her out to PetSmart. I needed a pack of Aspen for my baby chicks anyway. Got her in the carrier in the car, and on the road we went. She did remarkably well and didn't even get car sick. But you know what tiny detail I forgot? People talk to you when you bring your bird to the store, whether you want them to or not. I'm very good at dealing with people. Years of retail work, restaurant work, admin, etc. have trained me in the art of small talk. The PetSmart workers were fantastic, actually. Asked the basic general questions, no one asked to pet her, everyone kept a respectful distance and didn't overwhelm her, or me. Other customers though? Oh no. There was one woman in particular. She told me she had a scarlet macaw, a Hans macaw, and a Goffin cockatoo at home. She stopped me to chat, asked about my bird, and I gave the condensed version of her story. Isadora is almost 16. She came from an older couple who wanted a younger home for her, etc. She's doing great. She's the love of my life, etc. She asked, "So, she's almost 16 years old? How long have you had her?" I said for 4.5 months now. "Have you ever had a cockatoo before?" "No, she's my first large bird, and I couldn't have been luckier." This woman, who was only in her 50s probably, so she's only a little older than I am. I'm 39 female. She tells me, "You shouldn't have her. You don't have the experience with large birds, and you're too young to have one. You don't even look like you've got your own life together." And she reached for Isadora. She was going to take my bird. I would love to pretend like I had some witty comeback. I thought of all the good responses in the last couple of hours since we've been back home, and I've had a minute to process. In reality, I came back with the unbearably witty retort of, "What?" Because I'm brilliant under pressure. I stepped back and put my cart between us and said, "Nope, we're not doing this," and I turned around and walked out. Hours later, I've gone back in my head and told her off 10 ways to Sunday. In the moment, I was so flabbergasted. Someone tried to take my bird away from me. Like, she literally tried to grab my bird off of my hand. I don't think we're going to have another field trip. I think we'll stick to the yard for now. This was a stupid experience, and I would have enjoyed it more if I had had some brain power to yell at her and embarrass her for even trying to take my bird from me. She deserved to be horrifically embarrassed. I'm so mad about the whole thing. I'm still shaken up about it, and now I'm going to dwell on it for the next lifetime. Am I the jerk for ruining my dad's chances of winning my mom back? I'm 25, female, and my parents are getting divorced after 24 years of marriage. My mother was basically cheating on my father for months before he found out. I put cheating in quotation marks because my dad was a horrible husband, so I was actually happy she found someone else. Once my mom said she wanted to separate, my dad completely changed. He said he didn't want her to leave, begged her to stay, saying he will change. He actually got on medication for his depression, started being more affectionate, and asked for couples counseling that he said my mom agreed to do. One day I go to my parents' house and my dad says he wants my help winning my mom back. We're in the backyard and mom is in the house. I told him no because I want what's best for her and he's not it. He said that he has severe depression and saying that he's bad without acknowledging how depression can affect a person isn't right. He said he was disappointed because if the genders were reversed, I would admonish him for cheating and breaking the vow of marriage. Now this is where I might be the jerk. My dad is doing everything he can to win my mom back, so I said that while I won't help him, I wouldn't interfere in his plans and would stop talking about him with her. Me and my mom talk a lot about how crappy of a husband my dad is. At one point in the conversation, he says, in a calm tone, "I know you're not going to like this, but I'ma say it anyway. When one parent gives you gifts and takes you on trips and buys you things, of course you're going to side with them, even if they're wrong, because you don't want to lose that. This made me so angry. I have a genuine friendship with my mom, whereas even though my dad was a fantastic father, stay-at-home dad, gave us everything we ever wanted or needed, I don't necessarily enjoy being around him. I hang out with him sometimes out of obligation, but it's very forced, and I know he can tell, and he's told me this hurts him in the past. I basically went off saying, "Forget you," and "How dare you," and that he had no right to question my character, and the reason I like my mom more is because he's no fun, unmedicated, he's rude and rigid, and it has absolutely nothing to do with money. I'm screaming, but up until this point, our conversation was calm, and we were almost whispering so my mom wouldn't hear. My dad keeps trying to shush me, but I don't let up. I go to my mom and tell her what he just said, and he keeps looking at me saying, "Why are you doing this to me? I can't believe you're doing this to me. We were just having a calm conversation." I say I'm leaving, and my mom gets in the car with me. Later, my dad says that after my blow-up, my mom no longer wants to go to couples therapy. Am I the jerk for blowing up and making it harder for my dad to win my mom back? Edit. I'm editing this to add that the reason I'm so involved is because both my parents talk about the other to me. My dad started first, and my mom only got involved when I asked her if she was mistreating him in any way he was claiming, but they're both wrong for this. Other important info. My dad told me my whole life that he has bipolar disorder, and that's why he was so messed up. I've sent him books and podcasts and articles and lectures for years about this disorder. I made my entire family start therapy 2 years ago, and I said that my only request for my dad is that he get medicated because he knows he has bipolar disorder. He laughed and said, "I was waiting for you to say that. I'm not even bipolar." The therapist then got a little curt with me and said I shouldn't armchair diagnose just because I was a psych major. My dad just nodded along. This is just one of his serious manipulations, but he does it to me often, and that's why our relationship is fractured. Not the jerk. It was wildly inappropriate for your dad to request your help getting back together with your mom. Their marriage is their business, not yours. Not the jerk. Your dad was trying to manipulate you and your mom, and you did the right thing calling him out. You didn't ruin his chances to do anything. He's been doing that for years and just wants a scapegoat to blame his actions on. Not the jerk. Witness tampering comes to mind. You were good. You offered not to work against him. Then he exhibited the same type of horrible behavior as previously. Your being furious at him was a direct result of his actions and verbal attack. You were justified in feeling insulted and reacting to this. When all he had to do was just keep quiet after your offer and accept the win, he simply couldn't resist again showing you who he was. Your father trying to pin your mother's decision to not try therapy on you does seem to be part of his normal behavior pattern. Not the jerk. Your dad sounds like a total jerk. I'm also glad your mother was cheating on him, and I don't blame her one bit. This really reminds me of my own sorry excuse for a father. He also claimed he had mental health issues, and of course wanted to play the victim when my mother left him. Like, dude, you're a 40-something-year-old white dude living in America, and you seriously expect me to feel sorry for you because of your mental health? He thought paying my college loans would magically cause me to want a relationship with him. But once they were paid, I still went no contact, and I suggest you do the same. You're the jerk. I'm so disappointed in the way people are talking about the father in this story. Just because he's a man doesn't mean that he's immune to mental health issues. The fact that so many of you are excusing the mother's cheating and even cheering it on while simultaneously mocking and ridiculing the father, it just shows the hypocrisy that our modern society has been programmed to accept. I know I'll get downvoted to heck for pointing out this double standard, but I'm just disgusted to be honest. You all know darn good and well that if the roles were flipped, you'd be singing a completely different tune. Am I the jerk for sabotaging my little brother's and my birthday party? Me and my little brother have very similar birthdays. My brother's 12th birthday is today, while my 17th birthday is 2 days from now. Because of this, starting from when I was about to turn 5, after my brother was born, I've always remembered that my family has officially stopped celebrating on my actual birthday, and they rather prefer that we celebrate both of our birthdays on my little brother's birthday. And whatever compromise that I have, my parents had always dismissed. Like when I asked if we could celebrate on the day that's between our birthdays, my parents would respond that it would be rude to my little brother to celebrate his birthday late, but celebrating mine earlier isn't. Or when I asked if we can just have two separate birthdays, my parents have stated that that was a stupid idea because that wasn't cost-friendly and it was too time-consuming to have two separate birthday celebrations, especially since the birthdays were so close to each other. It's gotten so bad to the point that no one in our extended family even remembers when my own birthday is, because everyone believes that me and my brother have the exact same birthday, which makes me hate how close me and my brother's birthdays are. So for this birthday, I ended up doing some changes for this year. With the money I saved up, I ended up buying a decorated cake that said, "Happy birthday, brother's name, only," and I switched it with, and got rid of, the cake that had both me and my brother's name on it. I ended up hiding all of the pink decorations and leaving behind only the blue ones. And I also made sure to scribble off my name from anything I can get my hands on, like the banners, invitations, letters, etc., so that only my brother's name and information was on it. And on the day of the party, I rejected any gifts towards me and stated that, since it's my brother's birthday today, we should be celebrating his day, since I hate celebrating my birthday on a day that isn't my actual birthday. This caused a mixed reaction to a lot of family members, but it ended with many respecting my wishes and focusing on the birthday boy. My brother was the only one that was completely happy about it, probably because this is the first time that he was able to celebrate a birthday that was his own, and he enjoyed getting all the attention for himself. My parents, however, were livid at me for being petty and childish enough for wasting my time and money, and especially their money with all the vandalism that I did, sabotaging this party. In addition to that, they were also mad that I made them look bad, because a lot of our family are giving my parents flack for making it look like they're prioritizing my brother over me, as well as complaining that my insistence that they focus on my brother on his birthday to be unsettling and worrying. I mean, I think I may have gone overboard just a bit, but I don't think I did anything that wrong. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. Well done. And the best thing is that your brother was thankful. Next year you will be 18, and after that, you can celebrate any way you want. Not the jerk. And this almost belongs in malicious compliance. You didn't explicitly steal the spotlight from your brother, you made it about him. Brilliant. And you didn't make it look like they're prioritizing your brother. They are prioritizing your brother. You just let the rest of the family see it. Not the jerk. Good job. Your family now knows your brother is the golden child, or at least favored. There's no reason why they couldn't do his party one weekend and yours the next. My kids are 2 weeks apart. We never combine parties. It's not fair for them. You're the jerk. You had a little tantrum, not because you aren't being celebrated annually, but because you're having to share it with one other person. And it sounds like a decent affair too. Shoot, talking about banners? Most people don't get banners on their birthday. Some people are lucky to get a Duncan Hines yellow cake on their birthday. Also, cut the crap. Stop acting like you care about your brother getting his solo birthday. You care about you getting your solo birthday. Yes, you are the jerk. In short, what you did was deceptive, manipulative, and mean-spirited. You did something to look innocent and kind towards your younger sibling, but villainize your parents. That's not cool. As an adult, the logic about not celebrating a birthday late versus early kind of makes sense to me. I can't fault your parents for that logic. Still, I also think having it on a day that falls in the middle of your birthdays isn't a terrible idea either. The day itself, in my opinion, doesn't matter just as long as the birthday is recognized and celebrated. I've celebrated my friends' birthdays weeks after because that's when we were finally able to link up and afford to do it. Their birthdays fall during end of term or exam period. If I were your parents and could afford it, I'd let you guys celebrate different birthdays. I don't know your financials though, but I can see how it could be too expensive to have two separate events. Even two separate cakes and foods so close together, especially with the prices people are charging these days. They'd even have to buy more decorations. There are nuances, and I don't know, and off the bat, I'm sorry, but you come off as a brat. As the oldest, you'd think at this point, by 17 years old, you'd be more understanding about the nuances of money requirements in comparison to a 12-year-old. They aren't neglecting you, since they put both of their kids' names on the cake and had pink stuff and decorations for you. After complaining about how costly having this event is, you wasted their money and tossed the cake that they got. That was wasteful. The guests brought gifts for you. It's both of your events. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that I'll be missing her graduation to attend my son's? I, 43 female, have 2 kids. My daughter, May, is 21, and my son, Luke, is 17. May's father and I split shortly after she was born, and I met my now husband when she was about a year old. Due to work and life circumstances, May primarily stayed with her father, but visited us on the weekends when she was younger. She's an incredibly bright girl. She has an AA, she's about to graduate with her BA, and she's been accepted into a master's program that starts in the fall. I'm so proud of her, I can't say that enough. My son Luke is graduating from high school this year, and I found out that his graduation is a few days after my daughter's. We don't live very close by anymore, so it would be back and forth flights, which just doesn't feel practical. Since May is getting another degree, I've told her that I'll attend her next graduation, but this time I'm just going to attend her brother's since graduating high school is such a big step. May seemed a little upset at first, but she told me it was fine and that she understood. My ex called me later and told me that I wasn't considering May's feelings in the slightest. Her high school graduation in 2020 was canceled due to lockdown, then her ceremony for her AA was virtual for the same reason. So now that she's finally having one, my not going has really hurt her. I told my ex that I'd go to her next one, and that it's not fair that I just not show up for her brother. He says that it's more than possible for me to come see her graduate and then fly back in time to see my son do the same. My thing is that yes, it's possible, but it isn't practical. May told me herself that she is a little upset about it, which is why she vented to her dad, but she apologized for making it an issue. I don't know how to feel about this now. Am I being the jerk here? ETA. My daughter found this post, which wasn't my intention, but I did reach out to her to apologize for not being considerate of how this was going to make her feel. I'm going to fly out earlier to spend more time with her and to attend her graduation ceremony. You're the jerk. It isn't fair to pick between your son and daughter. If it's possible to go to both, then you should, even if it doesn't seem practical. My other question is, why is it even relevant of which parent she grew up with primarily? Both are your kids. It shouldn't matter if she grew up with her dad. Agreed. It'll be a whirlwind trip, but if it's possible, OP should make the effort to attend both. I might feel differently if she went to the daughter's high school graduation, but that was canceled. So this graduation would be the culmination of her high school diploma, AA, and BA. The fact that OP is blaming the practicality is BS. She could go, but literally just doesn't feel like making the effort. I'm sure May is just telling her mother, "Oh, it's okay," but is extremely hurt. I doubt this is the first time OP didn't want to put in the effort for her daughter. Sounds like her poor daughter is just used to being second to golden child brother. You're the jerk, majorly. You're the jerk. I'll go to your next one is so crappy. And it's completely your decision to not fly in earlier or to just suck it up and put in effort. You seem to really be a weekend parent to the heart. One gift for birthday and Christmas? No problem. I love birthdays and have always loved celebrating them, both for myself and for others. I love to give gifts as much as I love to receive them. But I was born in December, so it's always been an uphill battle getting people to celebrate mine or separated from the religious holidays happening that month. For me, it's not about the gift, but the principle. I've had several friendships where I was expected to help plan and pay for expensive gifts, dinners, trips, etc. for a spring or summer birthday, only to be told what an inconvenience it was to have to do something for a December birthday. I've been called greedy, childish, and have even had people ask me why I can't just combine my birthday with someone else to make it easier. It makes the friendship feel one-sided and makes me feel like an inconvenience. I don't get so upset about it anymore, but I do have some firm birthday rules. 1. You don't have to get me anything, but if you do, just pick one, birthday or Christmas. Keep them separate. 2. Whatever the agreement is, let's make it mutual. If no birthday gifts the agreement, it should hold for all birthdays involved, not just the inconvenient ones in December. Well, a best friend and I recently got into an argument about it because she felt I was being selfish for wanting 2 gifts in the same month. When I said we don't have to do birthdays, she insisted that she should get a separate gift for her birthday in March because it's a different time of the year. I pointed out that this was unfair, but she wouldn't hear it. I jokingly said in the end that if she gave me one gift for the month, I would purposely wait until March and give her an empty box for her birthday. She said sure, go for it. And as promised, she gave me one gift for both days and told me to stop being so childish. So March comes around and she has a little get-together, and the time comes to open gifts. When she unwrapped mine and saw that it was empty, I said, "Merry Christmas," and she got really upset. She said I was being petty and childish, and that I was going out of my way to ruin her birthday. The other guests seemed really upset too, and some of our mutual friends want me to apologize. I'm refusing to do so, and we haven't spoken since. Your friend's logic doesn't make sense. Either everyone gets to celebrate Christmas and birthday separately, or no one does. My son has a birthday December 30th, awful for planning parties, so we usually hold the family birthday mid-January. He gets separate gifts always. My wife is from December 23rd, so she insists on separate gifts. Get new friends who aren't selfish jerks. Am I the jerk for taking just my nephew to fun places and not my stepniece and nephew as well? My brother has an 8-year-old son, Caden. Caden's mom passed when he was a baby. My brother married Simone 2 years ago almost, and they have blended families. Simone has Bella, who's 10, and Archie, who's 9. Bella and Archie's dad passed when they were 4 and 5. Caden was really excited about Bella and Archie and having siblings. My brother and Simone told him that he'd have a brother and a sister, and they'd be buddies for life, and it really made him eager to live with Bella and Archie. But his experience with them has not been a positive one. They don't want to include him in anything. They seem to go out of their way to not spend time with him. Examples that I've witnessed and have been told about by Caden. Bella and Archie will be outside playing with kids in the neighborhood, and when Caden tries to join in and play with everyone, Bella and Archie will go inside, or they will go and do their own thing away from the other kids and Caden. Caden said sometimes Bella and Archie have said no to him joining, and Simone will tell her kids they cannot stop him from playing with everyone else. I witnessed this myself at Christmas. Kids in my parents' neighborhood were playing outside with their new toys and stuff. Caden joined a little after, and Bella and Archie left the larger group playing together and went off on their own. When their mom noticed, she went outside to say they should join the group again, and they said no, because they didn't want to play with Caden. Sometimes my brother or Simone will break up the kids into different groups for some fun family time, and Caden is always told they don't want to do that stuff with him. When my brother takes them, Bella or Archie will try to wander off. When Simone takes them, they always try to put her in the middle of stuff, so it's not like they're playing or having fun with Caden. Several months ago, when I realized how much it bothered Caden and how sad it made him feel, we started doing a water park or trampoline park near us for the occasional fun day out. He'd asked to invite his step-siblings, and given they are my step-niece and nephew, that made sense. The kids have never said yes. They've been offered, and they will say they don't want to come. So I still take Caden. But now Simone is bothered by this. Last time we went, Caden had such a good time, and he said it was the most fun he'd ever had because he got to stay late on the trampoline for helping another kid who was there. I guess Simone was bothered by him enjoying that so much when her other kids weren't there. I told Simone that Bella and Archie have always been invited, but they never come. She told me I shouldn't be taking Caden either then. My brother said maybe it's better to just lay off for now and not to bring Caden along. Simone wasn't just happy there though, and told me to consider my actions because I was being deliberately hurtful to her kids. Am I the jerk? Tell your brother, alone, that his kid is lonely. Tell him what Caden has been telling you, that Bella and Archie very obviously bail on every group Caden joins and he's crushed by it. Tell him that you will keep inviting Bella and Archie out for Caden's adventure days, and if that's hurtful to them, then you're at a complete loss as to how. Keep doing those days for your nephew, OP. You're his hero. And try to avoid being trapped into conversations with Simone for the foreseeable future if you possibly can. She's working out some weird, resentful stepmom energy there. Keep yourself out of the mix. Maybe your brother will see it plainer for himself if you're not there to blame. Not the jerk, as you already know. Not the jerk. It sounds like Caden is being bullied by his step-siblings. Just because they're not overly aggressive does not make this behavior less hostile. It sounds like your brother and his wife are not seeing this or doing much to help. Please don't let Caden feel like he's alone. If Simone has a problem, she should talk to her kids, and maybe they could all use some family therapy. Am I the jerk for telling my stepdad to take care of his actual kids? I moved an hour away and started a job over the summer and have become close with a few coworkers. One of them and I have become actual friends outside of the office, and she's integrated me into her friend circle. After getting to know her backstory, Mom was abandoned while pregnant and had to raise 3 kids. We got close, and I consider her a good friend now. She's so sweet and nice. Last weekend, I was over at her mom's house getting ready to go out and was looking at some pictures on her wall, and I saw one of her younger brother and a man and took a double take. He looks exactly like my stepfather, but younger. I tried to find another he was in, but that was it. She saw me staring at it and said that's her father, and I laughed and said he looks like my stepdad. She asked me his name, and I said it, and the color of her face left. She started calling for her mom to come to the room, and the next 10 minutes were me awkwardly answering questions. Turns out, my stepdad is her father. I met him when I was 6, so my friend would have been 8, and that's the time he left. He never mentioned having any kids, so it was shocking. It was horrible to hear them cry, and we never ended up going out. I told them that he has a successful business, and maybe they could get money for back child support, but they said they didn't want anything from him. I went home this week, and things have just been awkward. My stepdad is so nice, and literally my only father figure, so to know he abandoned his biological kids is crazy. My stepdad kept asking me why I'm acting weird, and I didn't say anything at first. My mom pulled me aside, and I told her everything. To my surprise, she didn't even react. She said how he lives his life is his business, and I shouldn't judge him. This is coming from a former single mother. I remember her crying over my dad leaving us, and I was disgusted by what she said. So I told her loudly to not speak to me, and she's a hypocrite, and stormed out of the house. My stepdad followed me to my car, saying that I need to come back and apologize to my mom right now, and I told him to go and apologize to the kids he abandoned and listed their names. He looked like he was going to faint and went back inside the house. My mom has been sending me texts that I need to apologize to my stepdad for being a jerk to him and making him cry for days, and that he raised me and took care of me, and that I shouldn't forget that, and that if he didn't do what he did, I would be the one without a dad and to be grateful. I haven't replied back. Am I the jerk? You were grateful to have him as a father before you knew this, and you can still be grateful for what he's done for you. At the same time, you can feel disgusted by what he did to them. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your mom should be apologizing to you for reacting to the news of your dad's misbehavior by attacking you instead. You've discovered that your stepfather is not who you thought he was. He, and your mom, told you a massive lie of omission for your entire life. He, and your mom, walked away from his family he was legally and morally responsible for. The fact that he raised you and took care of you has very little bearing on this new information you've discovered. It's okay to be appalled and take time to process this shock. And for goodness sake, you don't need to be the one apologizing. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for keeping in contact with my girlfriend's estranged half-sister? I've been dating my girlfriend for almost 5 years now. We just found out we're having a baby recently, so we've been happy about everything. About 2 years into our relationship, I accidentally met her half-sister, I'll call her Anne, who was born from an affair. It was at a baseball game. This girl who looked exactly like my girlfriend came up to us and introduced herself to me and tried telling my girlfriend about her upcoming graduation and that she wanted us to go. My girlfriend declined everything and told Anne to not speak to her. On our way home, she told me about her father's affair with this woman when she was only 5, that she had a half-sister that she never liked. I asked her if she ever tried to get to know Anne. She said no. I never had contact with Anne within the next 2 years until I saw her singing in some subway station on my way to work. She noticed me and asked if I wanted to get coffee, which I agreed. I asked her why she was singing in the subway station. She told me she was getting by and that she was living in a hotel room nearby. I had to leave early due to my work and gave her my number to keep in contact with me. So we did keep in contact with each other. I got her a job at a friend's hair salon and I helped her get an apartment. I told her about the pregnancy and we're becoming first-time parents. She was happy for the both of us. Anne must have seen her sister in public because she congratulated her on the pregnancy. My girlfriend hated that she knew and said she didn't want me to be near her again. I was given an ultimatum to stop all contact with Anne or leave my pregnant girlfriend. I only felt bad for Anne because I was homeless at a young age and I saw a lot of me in her. I gave her the support that I wished I was given. You're the jerk. Your girlfriend made it super clear that this was a boundary for her. You've gotten yourself involved to a degree that goes way beyond keeping in contact, which would have already been crossing a line. The boundaries are for the girlfriend. She can't extend her boundary to him just because she's uncomfortable. Frankly, if I was the boyfriend, I would be more concerned on why my girlfriend has no sympathy for her half-sister, considering she didn't choose to be an affair child. She doesn't have to have a relationship with her half-sister, but stopping the OP from having one is just hostile. Considering that she still chooses to visit her father, she's made her views on affairs pretty clear. On top of all of this, she's assigning ultimatums? His girlfriend does not seem responsible or even empathizing enough to have a kid. She absolutely can extend those boundaries to him. What if this wasn't her sister, but an ex who had mistreated her? If this was his sister, she would be wrong to demand no contact. But it's not. It's her person, and she has every right to try to set that boundary. If this was an ex or someone who had hurt her, that's an entirely different scenario though. This girl hasn't done any harm to his girlfriend. She's just existing with the consequence of their dad's poor decisions. How does his being kind to her have any bearing on his girlfriend? It sounds like she's too much of an indirect communicator to just tell Anna that she doesn't want to talk to her or have a relationship with her, and instead is trying to control her boyfriend's relationships. She doesn't have to feel bad for her, just because they're accidentally related. No one owes someone their love, consideration, or thoughts. OP getting the person a job and an apartment was way over the line. Keeping in touch is one thing, but he's doing too much. And it's a little weird to start a relationship with his pregnant girlfriend's half-sister when he was told not to, and then to continue maintaining it. He's getting nothing but grief, so unless they're hooking up, he needs to knock it off or lose his girlfriend. You're the jerk. The thing I never understand about these types of situations where busy-bodied people go around helping the estranged family of people they supposedly love is the question of loyalty. You know your girlfriend doesn't want anything to do with Anne. Why did you feel the need to have a relationship with Anne? I don't believe for a moment that you go to coffee, help with employment, and exchange phone numbers with every homeless person you see in the subway. Why this particular girl? Especially when you knew your girlfriend wouldn't want that. Have you no loyalty? Your girlfriend doesn't want yet another avenue open to Anne to get into her life. Why did you feel the need to pave the highway? Yes, you are the jerk for keeping in contact with a person who meant nothing to you, but you still build a relationship with, knowing your girlfriend wouldn't want it. Such a huge breach of trust against your partner. You're the jerk. Sure, we can all say OP has the right to make his own decisions, blah blah blah. But had the OP been honest with the girlfriend, I would have agreed. However, you went behind her back. It's almost as if you cheated on her with the product of a cheater. I'm sure that's the way she sees it, even though it's not half-sister's fault she was born. OP, you knew it felt wrong, so you omitted telling her, which is as good as a lie. Now she's pregnant and feels that the one person she could trust is no longer there. I don't know if there's any redemption for your relationship. Steal my Legos for your classroom? You'll be sorry. I had 8 large storage totes of Legos when I left home for college. Besides a few family heirlooms, I told them the only thing I wanted were my Legos. They could get rid of anything else. I even offered to come pick them up and store them with me while I was in college, so they weren't a burden. My mom said it was fine, she would keep them stored. Great. Fast forward probably 12-ish years, and I've got a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter who are quickly approaching Lego age. My wife and I are buying a home, and it will have a decent-sized area upstairs above the garage that we intend to turn into the playroom. I was talking to my wife about my plans. I wanted to put in padded flooring, build a fort-style structure in one corner, maybe build into the crawl space, a tunnel-type system or something, and I wanted to make an area that would be dedicated to the Legos. My wife seemed a little cagey about the plans. It would cost a bit of money, set our expectations down, etc. I obviously didn't plan on anything happening overnight. A few weeks later, and we're getting ready to head to Easter at my mom's house. I tell my wife I want to take our truck as I planned on grabbing the Legos from her place and bringing them home, and my wife gets a little cagey again. I sense that she knows something, and she finally admits it. My mom took the Legos to her classroom. My mom's a middle school teacher, 6th to 8th grades, special education in our town, and my wife is an assistant in her classroom. I guess several years ago, my mom took the Legos to the classroom for the kids to play with. I told my wife I would just get the Legos from the class at the end of the school year. However, my wife thinks I should just let it go. Some of the kids really love the Legos, and they would have a hard time if they came in after a summer away which is already pretty hard, change and whatnot, to find out that the Legos are gone. We talked about potentially buying some Legos from Craigslist for the kids to use, but I definitely wanted my Legos back. A lot of them tend to be older. Tons were my dad's Legos when he was growing up, so I definitely want those ones. At Easter, my sister got roped into the discussion with my wife and she agreed with my wife. While we both enjoyed the Legos a lot as kids, I would be a jerk if I took my Legos back from the classroom. They both suggested starting a new collection for our kids so they can love and enjoy these ones as they grow up. But I just don't agree. Part of the reason why they were so special to me was because they were handed down to me and I got to add to them. I was hoping to be able to do that here. Would I be the jerk if I took my Legos back at the end of the year? Not the jerk. Your mom could have asked you first. Those were Legos started by your dad, so there's a sentimental value, and that's something you want to share with your kids, so it's only fair you take the Legos back. I honestly don't get these jerk parents who don't think their kids would want to pass on favorite toys to their own kids, their grandkids, one day. Not the jerk. Your mom and your sneaky wife can buy replacement Legos on Craigslist for her students, or ask the students' parents to each contribute a bunch of Lego, or both. They both were dishonest. They're your Legos, and you made it clear you wanted to keep them. Very clear. Zero wrong with wanting to keep something that was yours as a kid. Take all the Legos back at the end of the year. Inform your mom and your wife now so they can start looking for whatever replacements they need. Am I the jerk for helping my son avoid his family after his wife cheated? I don't really feel great about throwing this up on the internet, but everyone's upset with me, so this is what I've got. My son and his wife have been together for 6 years, and they have a 4-year-old daughter. They've had their problems every once in a while, but to me, it seemed like they always worked through it. I know he absolutely loves her, and I thought they were very close. But 3 days ago, my son came to my door at 10 at night, drunk, sick, and in complete tears. I guess she had been cheating on him for some time, and during an argument, she finally admitted it. He just fell apart. He could hardly breathe right. I cleaned him up and put him in bed, and that's about where he's been since. He looks sick, he won't eat. I've never seen him so upset. His wife and her family were calling us both repeatedly, but we just didn't deal with it at first. He was devastated. I wanted him to have a moment to gather himself. This morning, I bit the bullet and answered her call. She was angry he had walked out and left her with their daughter and said she just wanted to talk about this like adults. I told her that she could talk to him when he chose to contact her and that I think he'd want to work something out, but she needed to give him some space. She got more upset and I told her I wouldn't talk if she was going to throw a fit, so she hung up. I don't know what she told her family, but I've since gotten calls from her mom begging me not to let him leave her and their daughter. Her sister called to go off on me for protecting a deadbeat father. They're all freaking out. He isn't abandoning his family. His life has been turned on its head, and I want him to have some time to find his feet. It's just been 3 days. It's not like he's run away. But now everyone's angry at me for letting my son leave his daughter, which he absolutely adores his daughter. He'd never just up and leave. So am I the jerk for letting him stay with me to get away from his family? I know it leaves his wife in a tight spot, but it's been 3 days and she hardly works part-time. It's not like he's left her with an impossible task, and I absolutely intend to have my son deal with this, but I just can't see him feel like this, and I don't think he could have any meaningful conversation this way. What should I do? I'm not trying to let him hide from his responsibilities, but he's hurting and he needs time to breathe. Some additions for clarity. Of course, we've discussed the possibility that his daughter might not be biologically his, but he doesn't plan to abandon her regardless. He loves his daughter and would, despite anything. And as far as if her family knows the full story, I have no clue. I haven't even tried talking with them yet. Not the jerk. He isn't opting out on being a father. He's taking the time he needs to process information. He needs to get his crap together quick and go be a father again. He needs to divorce her, collect evidence, hire a lawyer, and get a DNA test done on his daughter. His wife has been cheating for some time. I would definitely double check. That's up to the dad. He doesn't have to do that. He could be fine with not knowing this part if he loves his daughter as is, and knowing would only change things for the negative. If he's able to put what he knows aside and not be plagued by the thought, what a saint. People have done this forever before DNA tests existed. Sometimes not knowing is the better choice. It's not up to anyone else to decide but the dad. You raise and love the kid for 4 years, and you know for sure that that's your kid. The DNA test can only tell you if they have your DNA. 4 years of being a parent, and you already know they're your kid. Not the jerk. I know I'll get downvoted for this, but I feel it needs to be said. If the kid turns out to not actually be his, he should not be obligated to pay child support to make up for his wife's cheating and another man's burden. It's sad how so many of you are claiming he should skip the DNA test and just provide for the kid no matter what. Like, no wonder there are so many wives who end up cheating, having kids with other men, then still expect their husbands to financially support their kids. Most of you crazies here are claiming this is what should happen and what would be the right thing for OP to do. Holy entitlement, Batman. I'm selling a family heirloom to pay for my destination wedding. My fiancé, 38 female, and I, 39 male, are planning to get married this summer. We both want to have quite a lavish wedding at a winery in another state. The two of us agreed that it's the most important occasion in our lives, so we should make it as memorable as possible. We both have stable jobs and a good amount of savings, but it's not quite enough for the, admittedly ambitious, plans we have in our heads. My father passed in January, and in his will, he left me a very valuable, think 5 figures, family heirloom. I'm not much for big family traditions, so although it's a nice thing to have, I'm not massively attached to it. I have plenty of other good memories of my father, and I don't need a fancy heirloom to remember him by. My brother, who's 34, however, is a huge history nerd and is really attached to it. He was very upset by my father's decision in the will. The reason it went to me and not to him is that this has been traditionally passed down to firstborn sons. My fiancé and I don't plan to have any kids, and I think he assumed, therefore, that he, or his kids, would be in line to get it if I were to pass away. After some discussion, my wife-to-be and I decided that we would like to sell this heirloom to pay for our wedding. My brother, who is also my best man, was furious when he found out and said he wanted nothing to do with the wedding anymore. He thinks my wife-to-be and I are behaving like spoiled brats. In addition, he's convinced my uncle and cousins not to come to the wedding either. With our parents having passed, this means that virtually none of my family will attend the wedding, which I'm really upset about. I think that since I legally inherited the heirloom, I can do what I want with it. I think he's just upset because I ruined his expectations of one day inheriting it. But since my uncle and cousins agree with him enough that they are not coming to the wedding, I'm not so sure I'm in the right. Am I the jerk? Technically, you can sell it because it's yours, but you're the jerk for caring more about a ridiculously lavish wedding that will break the bank than you do for your relationship with your brother or your dad's tradition. If your dad had known that you were going to sell it, he would have left it to your brother. I hope your lavish wedding is worth it to you. You're the jerk. If you sell the item, don't be surprised if it ruins your relationship with your brother forever. All for what? So you can brag about your wedding to friends while looking at pictures that don't include anyone on your side of the family? You're the jerk. Legally being able to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. I doubt your dad would have given it to you if he knew you were going to sell it like it was nothing. Your brother didn't convince anyone to be mad at you or to not go. I bet he just told them, and they made those decisions mostly on their own. You probably should have thought about all of that before making such a selfish, self-centered decision. Not the jerk. Sorry, I don't get the whole family heirloom is the most important object in the entire world kind of thinking everyone has. If it's not something you're going to use or want to keep, get rid of it. Maybe I'm a sociopath, but last I checked, you're allowed to do what you want with your own property. Last I checked, you're allowed to spend your money how you want. Could you have offered to sell it to your brother or uncle? Sure. Would all the same people be calling you a jerk anyway for not just graciously giving away a 5-figure inheritance? Absolutely. Personally, I think anyone who feels entitled to what your father left for you is selfish and greedy. I know I'm going to get crucified for this take, but I really don't mind considering my mental image of everyone who will downvote this is of them divvying up their parents' assets while they're not in the ground yet. Not the jerk. Entitled house cleaner brings her kids and her kids trashed my house. Gotta put this out here. Most absurd entitled parent situation I've personally encountered. My husband and I looked to hire a local husband and wife small business to clean and do our maintenance projects on our house before our baby comes in a few weeks. They came by tonight to take a look at the projects and, surprise, brought their 3 elementary-aged kids. No biggie, I thought. Not ideal, but I like kids, and I like the idea of our home being a welcoming place for them. We'll let it go. We opened the door, and the kids scattered. All 3 of them took off screaming in different directions with their shoes on. One ended up in my room, and 2 on different ends of the living room where they all 3 started pulling my daughter's carefully organized, orderly toys off the shelves at an extremely rapid pace. "Well, they sure made themselves at home," the mom beamed. "They sure love your house." I tried to orient the parents quickly so they would leave ASAP, and the oldest kid noticed our loft, which is our playroom and library, and is also carefully organized and decorated with love with various handcrafted elements, and they all raced upstairs. We have 4 kids of our own, but managed to mostly keep things orderly. Each toy has a place. We have some small and breakable pieces from my and my husband's childhood. All the books are shelved alphabetically in categories. All 3 kids started shrieking at the sight of the room. I was trying to wrap up discussion with the mom. Then the stomping started and the clanging. Sounded like jumping off furniture. I paused for the mom to say something, but she didn't even bat an eyelash. Then came a crash that could only have come from furniture falling over. Mom again didn't so much as comment. My husband ran upstairs alarmed. The youngest one, 4 maybe, then raced down needing to go to the bathroom urgently. 3 of our 4 bathrooms need service, which is why we were hiring these people. So the only bathroom available was our master bathroom, where we have chicks in an incubator. As I showed the kid where to go, she got distracted by the chicks and screamed to the older kids upstairs to come and see now. So the older 2 came barreling and yelling, shoes on, through my room and bathroom, and the small one didn't quite make it to the bathroom in time. This all happened in like 15 minutes. I thought we'd quickly be introducing the adult contractors to the projects and negotiating pay. This was bizarre and horrible, I thought, but we'll just have them do the job tomorrow and not work with them again. But then, 2 of the kids started to tantrum when it was time for them to leave, notably without putting away a single toy they had disassembled or strewn about. Mom says, "It's okay. We'll be back so you can play more with them tomorrow." What? She was expecting to bring the kids and leave them unsupervised in my house? Or maybe she expected me to provide childcare while she performed tasks clearly unsafe for kids to be closed off in rooms for 7 hours. Of course, we're canceling. I'm almost too shocked to even be upset. I just checked upstairs and found a shelf of books partially toppled. Every toy in the living room is in pieces on the floor. The bathroom is a mess. It happened so fast, I just can't. Sounds like they've got quite the business plan. The minions' job is to wreak havoc in your house, so you have no choice but to hire them to clean it up. Am I the jerk for asking for time away from my wife? I'm 28, male. My wife is 24. She has a very strong bond with her family. Last month, both of her parents moved to live with her brothers in Australia, and she's been feeling very down since then. I'm definitely at fault for not making enough time for her these past few weeks due to excessive workload at my new job. This all led to constant arguments initiated by her. It started to get really suffocating and frustrating for both of us, so I asked her if, for a few days, she can go live at her parents' house that they left in her care. She did not say anything, but packed her stuff and left in the morning. I only wanted her to have some time alone to clear her head. I assumed she needs space and called to ask her if she reached there safe and needs groceries since it's been a month that house has been empty. She didn't answer my calls, but sent a text later to inform me that she's there. I thought she really wants to spend this time alone, so I decided not to bother her because she's an introvert who often needs her personal space. We talked very briefly over messages a few times after that. On Tuesday, I took a day off of work to go see her since it's been over a week, and she didn't return or even call. I found out that she's been sick for days and is on leave from work. When I asked her why she didn't inform me, she said she did not want to bother me. I took her to see a doctor, and turns out she has jaundice and is 4 weeks pregnant. Now she's back home. I've apologized, but she's unusually reserved, and I feel like I'm the reason. My intention was only to give her space and have some time alone for myself. I really love her and never intended to hurt her at all. Am I the jerk? So let me get this straight. 1. Your wife expressed that you had been ignoring her. 2. Your response to this was to send her away to live in an empty house by herself. 3. You ignored her all week. 4. And you justify this by saying she needs space? You were doing this for her? No, you wanted space, and you're so immature and messed up that you can't even admit it to yourself. Your selfish behavior here has made your wife feel awful, humiliated, and disrespected. Not to mention, you could have put her in danger because she was sick and pregnant. You are a completely self-absorbed jerk and it doesn't seem like you respect her or care about what she wants at all. You're the jerk. I feel bad for your wife that she's stuck having a kid with you. Your wife was depressed because her parents moved. You didn't make time to help her because of work. You were fighting a lot, and how you found time to fight when you had no time to be loving and supportive is beyond me, so you kicked her out to go live in an empty house. How you could have written all of this out without realizing you're the jerk is amazing. Holy cow, you're the jerk. This woman is going to be the mother of your baby, and your answer to being in conflict with her was to ask her to leave? Don't do this again. Next time, she might not come back. She'd be better off not coming back. Not the jerk. Let's see. So the husband is working long hours at work in order to provide for his family. His wife is acting like a needy baby because her parents moved. You're refusing to coddle her, so now Reddit thinks you're the bad guy? Honestly, she sounds like she has issues. No wonder everyone here is defending her. About 99% of the people on this site have issues themselves, to be honest. If I were you, I'd be getting a divorce. Find someone who actually appreciates the fact that you work long hours to keep a roof over their head and who doesn't need to be coddled because her mommy and dada moved. Can you imagine if the roles were flipped? My husband is sad because his mommy and daddy moved, and I've been working long hours to provide for him, so I haven't been constantly available as his emotional sponge. I asked him for some time apart and if he could go stay in his parents' vacant house. Am I the jerk? Everybody would be telling her to leave you. Am I the jerk for asking my ex if our son, who's 11, could bring his stepbrother, who's also 11, on their father-son camping trip? My ex and I got a divorce when our son was 6. When he was 8, I started dating my current husband. On the day my son met his stepbrother, they stood in front of each other, sized each other up the way that boys do, and were silent for a moment. Then my son asked, "Do you want to play Super Smash Brothers?" And his stepbrother said yes, and they ran upstairs. It was fraternal love at first sight. They've been attached to the hip ever since. My stepson's mother passed a few years ago, and my husband was actually hesitant to introduce me and my son to his 2 kids because he thought it was too soon. It turns out that everything worked great. The first year we were all together, my stepson asked if my son could come along when they visited their mother at the cemetery on her birthday, and he spent the whole car ride over telling my son all about her, and it seemed therapeutic for him. Later that night, I checked in and saw that my son had climbed up to the top bunk and they had fallen asleep curled up together. Before she entered her current 7 going on 17 phase, my stepdaughter used to crawl into my son's lap as often as she did my stepson and ask them to read to her. Since the divorce, my ex-husband has been unreliable at best. He cancels on my son regularly, making some excuses about work and what have you. The twice-monthly weekends together have trailed off to 3 or 4 times a year. Every time I have to tell my son his father canceled, my stepson goes to his father and asks if the 3 of them can do something together. One of the few things my ex-husband likes enough to always follow through with is camping. He's planning on taking my son camping in a few weeks, the weekend after Father's Day weekend. My son loves camping as well, and he's the one who convinced my stepson to join Boy Scouts next fall. The thing is, this year he wants to bring his stepbrother along. I told my ex-husband this and he got upset, saying that it's their time together and he doesn't want someone else's kid going along with them. He says that it's supposed to be the 2 of them bonding. I told him he's had plenty of chances to bond that he blew off for one reason or another, and that he should consider himself lucky that he has such a compassionate and sensitive son and that our son still wants anything to do with him. He hung up in a huff. His mother called yesterday to complain that I was expecting my ex to just sit there while my son and stepson went off on their own and ignored my ex completely, and said that I need to look at it from his perspective since he only gets to see our son a few times a year. For obvious reasons, this annoyed me to the point where I hung up. My husband said that he gets it and thinks I should just let it be the 2 of them. Am I the jerk? 99.9% your ex is clearly the jerk, but it's reasonable for him to not want to take the stepson camping. You're the jerk if you try to push this. Making a plan for the boys to go camping with OP's husband is the way to go. Even if neglectful dad has refused the stepson and dips out on his own son, both boys will still have another adventure to look forward to that will actually happen. Win-win. You're the jerk. You asked, he answered. The answer was no. You didn't need to keep going. She didn't really keep going. She advocated for her son and then got harassed by his mother. The ex also did not appear to be stepping up to tell the son that the stepson couldn't come. It appeared that the ex and the ex-mother-in-law wanted the mother to do it. None of this is her problem. She relayed her son's request. Her work is done. Her only response going forward should be, ask your father. She is not the jerk. You're the jerk. I'm with your husband on this one. The dynamic of the trip changes completely with another kid going along. Your ex goes from dad being fully engaged and participating with his own son to referee/fire starter/tent maker. Am I missing something? It seems pretty clear here that your son is the one that expressed interest in bringing his stepbrother along. Your son is pretty lucky to have meshed so well into a blended family. All you're doing is asking your ex if your stepson can come too. Ex is allowed to say no. You're allowed to try to change his mind. But your husband is right. You should not be pushy about this. I get you hold a lot of resentment against your ex, but you must have made your ex feel pretty guilty for him to go crying to his mom. I haven't gathered enough from posts to indicate that you are actually being pushy yet, so I'll just say no jerks here for now. I don't think you're missing anything. All the "you're the jerk" votes seem to have poor reading comprehension. I don't even see how she tried to change his mind. She stated some basic truths, and the ex got huffy and hung up and went crying to his mommy, who then called to go off on OP. The "am I the jerk" question is about asking her ex. For that, I would vote not the jerk. Did she actually refuse to accept a no or refuse to tolerate BS from ex and ex-mother-in-law? I'd be annoyed too. He's been neglecting his son so much and then getting upset about this of all things. His attitude could be improved in my opinion. I do agree with OP. Her son seems to be way more understanding and forgiving than his dad. And not to be rude, but probably more emotionally mature too. Am I the jerk for not paying my boyfriend's child support? My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years now. He moved in with me around the year mark, and during this time, he has not held a stable job due to health concerns and being in and out of the hospital. But he is working now and has been for a while. Between the both of us, we have 4 kids, his 2 and my 2. His ex-wife is constantly saying how her kids are my responsibility too, even when they aren't at my house, and that if my boyfriend cannot make his child support payment or pay for after-school care, or if her kids need something, that I should step up to do it. Child support is set up to come out of his checks. But I won't. It's been nothing but a battle with her. She's constantly tearing me down and saying that I'm not a parent to her kids and shouldn't even try, that it doesn't matter unless my boyfriend and I get married. She has and still does talk crap about me to my boyfriend's family. It's not been civil, and I have done nothing but try. Mind you, I have 2 kids of my own. I pay for everything in my home, including anything and everything his kids need while here, not to mention the gas for him to get his kids to and from during his time. I make sure that all kids have everything they need here, even when it comes to holidays. I buy the same for his as I do mine. I make sure his 2 are included in everything that we do, because we do it as a family. I love those kids as my own, but I cannot afford to pay 2 households worth of stuff. But in the end, it doesn't matter. She goes off on me for not stepping up and paying her child support or not asking if there's anything they need for her house. Am I the jerk for not paying his child support to their mother? I feel like you are in a pattern of getting with men that do not care for their own kids properly. Not the jerk. Your boyfriend sucks for not paying child support or buying things for his kids, but it's not your responsibility. 5 years from now, she's going to have 1 or 2 of his babies too and be complaining about how he never pays his child support. Info: why are you with someone who can't afford or refuses to pay their child support? Everyone sucks here. Why are you in this situation? You have 2 kids to support with little help from their dad, so you move in this guy who has 2 kids too? Now what resources you have to be split even more. You kind of suck here. We get you want to be loved, but how little does your kids have to receive so you can enjoy whatever this man brings to you? You already know that you don't have to pay this woman anything. You're just here ranting that she's a jerk who badmouths you. So what? Why are you even talking to her? Block her number and send this dude back to his mother until he can hold down a job, pay his bills, and have something sustainable to offer to you and your kids. What does he bring to the table other than his needs? You're the jerk. Situations like this really drive me up the wall. Why do they always choose to be with guys like this, who have kids and refuse to provide for them? I'll tell you why. Because those guys are 6 feet tall, have good facial genetics, muscles, and are overly confident. Then you have guys like me, very average looking, good job, master's degree, Not super confident, and not even one woman will swipe right on me. Then the women I do manage to meet through mutual friends always tell me that they like me as a friend and don't really want to try dating me, but they're fine going out to eat with me as long as I pay for it as usual. Then you hear about couples like this, and I just don't get it. Like, maybe the hot guy with 2 kids he doesn't provide for and who doesn't have a job won't make the best partner for you. Maybe give the normal-looking guy who has his own house, makes $80,000 a year, and has no kids yet a chance. Edit. Call me all the names you want. Nothing that I've said here is untrue. We live in an age where pointing out the obvious results in people calling you names and belittling you. No wonder you're all picking the wrong guys. You people have no common sense. Am I the jerk for losing my temper at someone who rear-ended my car? Earlier today, I was driving to work at my internship job. The car behind me was driving dangerously close to me the whole time. Then, as I stopped at a red light, the girl driving behind me tried to do a full lane change at the very last second and hit the back corner of my car just as she was turning in. I signaled to her to stop over on the side street parking ahead and proceeded to have the most frustrating interaction I've ever had with a stranger. She refused to apologize or take any responsibility. I don't think I've ever dealt with such an entitled and stuck-up jerk in my entire life. I genuinely tried my hardest to stay calm when I first approached her, but I very quickly lost my patience in less than 10 seconds of interacting with her. Me. What are your insurance details? Her. I don't know them, bro. Me. Who manages your insurance then? Your parents? Her. Maybe. I don't know. Is this a police interview? Me. Can you stop messing around and just find out what your insurance details are? Her, smirking. Why are you crying about it? My car's messed up too, and you don't hear me complaining. Me. Are you dumb? Was I the one who rear-ended you, or did you crash into me? This mess happened because your brain is too small to learn how to steer a car properly. Her. Don't call me dumb. Watch your tone when you speak to me. Me. Forget you. I'll talk to you however I want. If you're not going to give me your insurance details, then I'm just going to take a photo of your number plate. Her. Whatever. I'm done talking to you. I don't talk to short men. At this point, I knew the conversation wasn't going anywhere, so I took a photo of her car's plate and we both drove off. Personally, I think my anger was completely justified. I've never dealt with someone so exhausting. Not the jerk. I think you should have stayed at the scene to call the police though. Now she can claim that there was some mutual agreement reached, when, in fact, she fled the scene. Also, I hope you have uninsured motorist coverage, because I seriously doubt she doesn't know her coverage. She was probably either an unauthorized user or didn't have any. If she refused to provide her car information as required by law, they can still call the police and report it. I had to call the police on the guy who rear-ended me and refused to provide his insurance, and they ticketed him for it. You're the jerk. She was probably just scared out of her mind. I'm a younger driver too, 21, female, and to be honest, we just don't waste time on the road. You consider her driving to be erratical, but chances are she was just driving the way normal younger drivers do. Then you made her pull over, got out of your car, and demanded her details without even introducing yourself? Then you're surprised she doesn't have a customer service attitude with you? I would have called the cops on you if I had been her. You sound like you have serious anger issues, and taking out your road rage like this is gonna wind up with you behind bars. My pregnant sister expects me to support her family financially. My sister got pregnant with her boyfriend right out of high school, got married the next year, then proceeded to pop out another baby every year or two, so she now has 4 kids and she's 24 years old. She's a stay-at-home mom, even though she was brilliant and could have gotten a free ride to a great university. Since hers are the only grandkids, our parents fawn over her constantly. They gush over every new tooth or haircut like it's some sort of huge achievement. Problem is, her husband's business wasn't doing great even before lockdown and is barely limping along now. Sister doesn't work and my parents have limited income. So guess who constantly gets told to lend money to them for crap like school fees, car seats, car payments, new strollers, etc. They don't even ask. My mom just texts me, "Your sister needs money for the kids," and I'm supposed to cough it up. If I complain, they accuse me of being jealous because I don't have a husband and family, even though I'm older. I'm only 26. So over Easter, I notice my sister isn't drinking, and I think, oh no, here we go again. Sure enough, she stands up and announces that she's having yet another precious miracle. Everyone's gushing, and I just try to stay quiet and out of the way. Later, she asks me if everything is all right, and I try to play it off, but she pushes. So I asked her if she and her husband could really afford another baby. Very snippily, she replies, "God will provide like he has so far," which really ticked me off. I yelled that, no, actually, God didn't provide for her babies. I did, and I wasn't going to be giving them any more handouts. It devolved into a huge argument, and everyone shouted at me, and basically, I've been banned from my family unless I apologize. I haven't apologized. It's been radio silence, except for one text from my mom saying that if my sister has issues with her pregnancy, then it's my fault for stressing her out. I asked if my sister was showing any symptoms, but no one will answer me or tell me. I don't know. I don't think I'm the jerk, but I don't want to be the reason that she has pregnancy issues. Karen divorces me and demands to still use my car. My ex-wife, who's 37 female, and I, 31 male, were together for almost 6 years and have 2 daughters, who are 5 and 7. She filed for divorce because she wasn't happy anymore with me, and we've now been divorced for almost 2 years. It was very difficult for me, especially not being able to see my daughters all the time, but we were able to arrange a 50-50 split custody agreement, and I also pay court-ordered child support since I earn significantly more than her. But looking back, I realized that divorce was the right decision, and the divorce has motivated me to pursue my career more and focus on my physical health. It has definitely paid off. I'm in the most comfortable position financially that I've ever been in and have been in the best shape of my life. So I guess in a way, the divorce was a start for me to reach my full potential. My ex-wife and I have a good co-parenting relationship, but nothing more. I've been doing great, so the last thing I want is to have my ex entangled in my life more than she already is. I only communicate with her about the kids and shut down any attempt of her trying to involve herself in my life that doesn't involve our kids. My ex recently called me and told me that she hasn't been doing great financially and that she has completely burned through her savings to pay rent and bills on her own to the point where she had to sell her car a few months ago. She said that she's been using public transportation to get to work and pick the kids up from school, which she says completely stresses her out because it's an almost 1-hour bus ride to her work, making her late a lot and having no time to properly do anything besides work and picking up and taking care of the kids when she has them. I currently own 2 cars, one that I use on a daily basis to go to work and run errands. I bought a more expensive car about a year ago, and I pretty much only use it when I'm going out on weekends or out on dates. Knowing that I have 2 cars, my ex asked me if she could use one of my cars to help her out so that she can have a life besides work and kids. I told her that her being able to have a life besides the kids has nothing to do with me and is not my responsibility. I told her that the kids are my only responsibility towards her and that anything else in her life is her problem since I'm not her husband anymore. She told me that I'm insensitive and that being terrible isn't going to lead to anything. I just told her that the financial security that I provide isn't something she has the right to anymore and that she has to deal with her own problems now. Am I the jerk? Edit. Everything our kids need is within walking distance of my ex's place. It's her job that requires her to take those hour-long bus rides. I'm not gonna leave a judgment, but you sound so bitter. Maybe get some therapy. She's the mother of your kids. Your job as a father should be to make their lives easier. You sound like a jerk, and I can only guess why she divorced you. You'd be helping your kids, which is what you should do. And be careful of alienating your kids from their mother because your bank account is larger. That would be considered mistreatment, and courts don't like that. Be a decent human being. I'll vote no jerks here, purely on technicality, because technically you're right. You don't have to let your ex borrow your car or let her have any more emotional space in your life beyond your kids, but I don't really understand how you don't see that your ex being miserable will have a negative impact on your kids. Your problems aren't mine is quite the ignorant notion towards someone who's raising your kids 50% of the time. There will always be an entanglement. Also, to me, it doesn't sound like you're being completely honest about being in a better place than when you were married. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so unempathetic towards your ex-wife. You're the jerk. You're not responsible for her, no, and I don't think you should give her your car or be responsible for her. But don't forget your kids here. Even if the situation is entirely because your wife is terrible, don't you want to be good to your kids? What you should be thinking here is, what can I do to make things better for my kids? Which may or may not involve you doing something for your ex. You can't say you're 50-50 parenting when you don't give a hoot about them the other 50% of the time. Have a grown-up conversation. How can you both parent your kids better? You're the jerk. This post comes across as very smug and cringy. You spent half the post talking yourself up. What has your fitness got to do with anything? Basically, she wounded your ego by leaving you, and now you get to lord it over her financially. I doubt many of these women you're pursuing would be very impressed if they knew the mother of your kids is struggling to survive, even more so that you have an extra car on the driveway whilst they have none. Do you want your daughters to look back at their childhood and remember the disparity in both your living situations? Lavishly at yours and scraping by at their mother's? Knowing that you go on expensive dates and have a flashy car to peacock them around in? Or do you want them to look back and remember you gave their mother a car so they could get to school and extra money so they could buy groceries? Personally, I'd choose the high road, but it's up to you. Not the jerk. Reverse the genders and everyone would be calling husband a bum and claiming wife should have full custody. Sorry Reddit is being so Reddit on you today. Congrats on improving your life. You deserve it. Am I the jerk for not removing the Disney items from my house? I'm 35, female. My husband, who's 38, and I are what you would call Disney adults. We used to work for the parks in college and met there. For us, it has sentimental value as well as being something we both loved from our childhood. Now, we are conscious to not be those Disney adults. We can hold conversations outside of the movies and parks. We both work well-paying jobs unrelated to the company. We have other hobbies and interests as well. Our son isn't big on Disney, and we're cool with that. It's just something that we enjoy, as well as our daughters. We nurture all of our kids' hobbies and interests. We also don't blow all of our money on this stuff. I know I may sound overly defensive, but we get a lot of comments from people who don't know us well. Anyway, we live in a renovated farmhouse on a bit of land that includes a barn that we finished off, with hopes to make it a guest house one day. In the meanwhile, we've had a relative get married here, and it was gorgeous. Now my sister, who's 28, wants to get married on our property, and we were all for it. Everything's been planned for months, and the wedding is in June. It's set to be outside completely, but if it rains, we can move the party into the barn. The only reason a guest would have to go in our house is to use the bathroom. We have 2 on the first floor. The only Disney items are Winnie the Pooh hand towels. I told my sister I'd replace them with regular ones. Wedding space has no Disney items. However, she wants me to take down everything Disney on the first floor of my home, as guests will see it. We have a lot of Disney items: pictures, paintings, blankets, Funko Pops, decorations, figurines, dishware, etc. And a lot of it is subtle or vintage, but you can still tell it's Disney. 1. This would be a massive undertaking. It's not as simple as shoving stuff in a closet. We'd have to pack it up and find a place to store it. The sheer amount would require at least 2 hours of packing, not to mention storage and unpacking after. 2. It's ridiculous to me. Who cares if people see? She says it looks tacky and she doesn't want people to remember her wedding for that. I told her no. We're decorating the outside and barn as she wants. We're letting her use our property for free, which she keeps bragging about to friends as it's saving them a ton. When my husband and I stood firm, she whined to our parents, who told us to grow up and take it down. Not the jerk. Your sister doesn't want her wedding to be associated with Disney? Your sister wants full control of the space and decoration. I have an idea. She should rent her own venue. Seriously, enforce your boundaries and say that's as far as you're willing to go. If she wants to change everything, she needs to rent a different venue. She wanted to get married at your property. She knows you have a lot of Disney items. She can take it or leave it, especially as said items are in an area restricted from guests. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. She's making unreasonable demands on your home. Who cares if you decorated your home with Disney, dinosaurs, or duckies? It's your home. You're already doing her a huge favor by letting her use the barn and property for free. She's being a choosing beggar right now. If the Disney decorations are that much of a bother to her, then maybe she should find a new location, though I'm sure she wouldn't want that because other venues won't be free or so accommodating to her demands. You refuse to recheck our scores? Fine. Have fun with unemployment. Context. I've been working in this health insurance company for the past 3 years. I recently took another position with better hours and pay, but this time it was to coordinate appointments with doctors and specialists. My metrics were always great, and the reason I was selected for the new position was due to my metrics. This has been brewing since October of 22. We used to have a coworker, let's call her Karen. Karen is this older lady that thinks she knows it all. Everything she says is right, and she often blames everything on other people. Typical Karen activities. The first time I interacted with her was back in October when I messaged her via our work chat, because she messed up prior authorization for a patient and the MD office was calling to have the person that created the authorization fix the issue. The conversation went like this. Me. Hi, good morning. I have an MD office calling requesting to speak to you in regards to a prior authorization that looks incomplete. Karen. And you couldn't help them? This is a call center. You're supposed to help. And I don't even know who that MD is. Me. You're correct, this is a call center. However, you created the authorization, and as you know, I can't fix authorizations that weren't created by me. And also, they would like to speak to you specifically. I also provided her the patient record number and the MD office phone number. Karen. Well, I'm not available to talk to them. Okay. I went back to the call, and I specifically told the MD what she said, including that she's not available to talk, but hopefully she will call them back to fix the issue. I also sent a message to my direct supervisor with a screenshot of our conversation, and I simply said, this is unprofessional, especially in an environment like ours. Fast forward to the start of the year, and Karen took a position with our quality assurance department due to them being understaffed. I used to work in the quality assurance department, and I knew the ins and outs and knew she would be assigned to our department since she already had experience. Context. Our quality assurance gives us scores from 100, and if we miss something, we get points deducted. Example, miss HIPAA, minus 20 points. Inaccurate info, minus 10 points. Don't advise people for our survey, minus 5, etc. Come January, we get our first bad score in 3 years of the company. It was a 56%. I was astonished because this is the first time I had been given a bad score. But I also make sure the score was correct. Our company gives us the choice to listen to our calls just to be sure or just in case the quality agent made a mistake. I listened to my call and I did everything right. I completed the information, provided good service, and I asked if the patient needed assistance with anything else and provided closing script. On the quality note, it was stated that I didn't offer any help and that I didn't even complete HIPAA. I sent it to my supervisor and he stated that when I offered the closing script, the patient asked something and I replied and disconnected the call. Okay. I still said the closing script, and his question and my answer lasted literally 5 seconds. My supervisor still went to her and managed to fix the score to 95% because she felt like I didn't provide a survey. If anyone's worked in a call center, you know that metrics are everything, and one bad metric will quickly not get you your monthly bonuses, and on top of that, management will go off on us because if we don't achieve the metrics, they also don't get their bonuses. I took screenshots of our conversation, saved it in a file, then I sent it to my personal email since I know our IT department is known for deleting anything that's not a working system or appropriate. Fast forward 3 days ago, April 18th. I had received several scores ranging from 85% to 80% and only one 100% score. The 100 score, I received it because Karen wasn't the one who audited my call and the other person found everything all right. But the 85 looked fishy since the first thing you see is the patient name. I quickly remembered the call because the person was funny and I enjoyed the call. I listened to the call and of course I did everything perfectly. However, Karen put on the system that she deducted 10 points for not telling the patient that he had a copay for the visit and another 5 points for extending the call. What? I contacted my supervisor and let him know of what happened. However, I didn't receive a response. I was confused, so I sent a message to a coworker who told me they've been having the same issue with Karen, with inaccurate audits and the department not achieving their monthly goals due to it. Since my supervisor didn't reply, I did what everyone does when management doesn't reply. I messaged Karen, and I sent her a message that just said, "Hey, I have some inaccurate audits and I'd like to know if you could recheck them since I listened to the calls and everything was done perfectly." The reply I received was, "All audit scores are final and it cannot be appealed." I knew it was a lie since I worked with quality before and I knew that it could be changed. I replied, "You know I worked in that department for 1 year and I know it can be rechecked and reversed, right?" Karen said, "Your previous position is irrelevant in this matter. If you don't like the score, you can go ahead and submit a complaint to my supervisor." I replied, "Okay, have a good day," knowing that her supervisor knows me really well. Cue malicious compliance. I didn't just create one formal complaint, I created one complaint for each time she scored me incorrectly. Not only that, but I also told my 19 coworkers what she said and advised them that if they would like their scores overturned and rechecked, they could send a complaint to her supervisor, but only to send one complaint per bad score. Also, to let you guys know, we don't get one audit a month. No, we get audited 10 times per month. In the span of 24 hours, her supervisor must have received around 200 complaints from our department complaining for one person, Karen. The first complaint was mine, with Karen's conversation saying that all decisions are final and she can't recheck or overturn, and also saying to submit a complaint to her supervisor. Her supervisor sent me a message saying that they will evaluate all of the complaints and scores and we will be receiving a message. That was on Monday, April 17th. Tuesday, we didn't get any messages. Wednesday, I couldn't go to work due to my illness. But today, April 20th, I received a message from her supervisor stating that my scores had been reviewed and properly scored, and also stating that my supervisor will be under investigation because any complaint should be submitted to his manager, and he never submitted anything, and that the employee has been terminated. But the best part is logging into our chat and seeing Karen's profile with no pictures, and instead of her name, it only said unknown user. The morale of our group is better, and I hope we don't have issues again. Am I the jerk for selling my daughter's car? I, 56 male, have a son who's 28 and a daughter who's 22. I like both of my kids equally. However, they are different individuals with different lives, so I help them based on their needs. My son did not do well in high school and went to a community college and decided it was not for him after a semester and went to trade school and eventually settled on HVAC. He had issues sticking to things, so as a reward, when he became certified in HVAC, I bought him a brand new truck as a gift. My daughter got into a good college out of state and was always more academically minded. When she was about to finish high school, it came to a surprise to me that she had taken it for granted that I would also get her a new car, even though I never said that. I explained that there would be no need for a college girl in a big city to have a car. She then asked if I could help with tuition. I did not pay for trade school either, so I declined. Eventually, she seemed down, so I offered to buy a used car in my name, and she could use it for a while until I decided to sell it, but she would have to maintain it. She seemed really happy with that, so we got an old '99 BMW for really cheap. The body was in good condition, but the engine and transmission needed work, and it needed painting. She did the essential fixes first, but then slowly did unnecessary ones, even though I never asked for that, and repainted most of the car and had the interior detailed. When she came back for a visit this week after finishing her finals, I decided it was time to sell the car and listed it. She seems upset with me, even though we had agreed to it, and I never asked her to repaint the car. She said she thought I was going to sell it much later when it rusted or something. She also says I can sell it more expensive because of her fixes, but the reality is I got the car just before lockdown, and used cars cost a lot more since, and that's why I cannot sell it for more. I offered to pay her back for half of the paint work. Am I the jerk here? Edit. Okay, seems people think it was wrong, but my son only got the truck after schooling, and my daughter has not finished school yet. I have not thought of her graduation gift yet, but the car is only listed, and I will think about it and reconsider. Edit 2. Okay, I'll let her keep it and delist it for now. My plan was always to sell it, as I feel like 90s BMWs in good shape are desirable, but she seems attached to the car now. Am I the jerk for letting my husband leave and ruining mother-in-law's family photos? I, 27 female, have been married to my husband, 29 male, for 5 years. My husband has a big family, 4 sisters and a brother, and they are all very close. Sister-in-laws visit mother-in-law at least once a week and help out with things like house cleaning and gardening. We visit them a couple times a month, and my mother-in-law calls my husband at least twice a week. I've never really had a problem with my in-laws, other than mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law being a bit cold to me when we got engaged because they wanted my husband to settle down with someone who was Korean. But I like to think that they've warmed up to me. So today, we went over to my mother-in-law's house since we were told the whole family would be there for a nice dinner. We dressed up, as mother-in-law expects when she says it will be a nice get-together. We were visiting with his siblings and their spouses, but mother-in-law announced that she had a photographer coming over and she wanted to do family photos in the garden. We were taken aback as we hadn't been told about any photos, but we went with it. It's not unusual for mother-in-law to spring things on us. So we socialized until the photographer got there. Then everyone started going out back to get ready for the photos. Mother-in-law asked to speak to me for a moment, so my husband went out without me. I figured she'd tell me to change my hair or take off my lipstick, as it's common for her to micromanage my appearance. Instead, she told me she wanted me to wait inside. I was taken aback and asked if it was just going to be the immediate family. She said no, she was going to hang these up in her house and wanted to make sure they gave off a good image. I asked her what that meant, and she said she wanted the pictures to have serious family members in it, and I should just wait inside. I just nodded and left for the bathroom before I started crying. Sister-in-law, too, had brought her boyfriend of 7 months, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, 4, had brought their spouses of 4 and 2 years, who I assumed were going to be in the pictures. I tried to hold it together in the bathroom. After about 10 minutes, I heard my husband calling for me. I come out to find him storming through the house, mother-in-law chasing after him with sister-in-law 1, both shouting in Korean, and we left with his mother yelling at us. He didn't talk on the way home. He shuts down when he's angry, so I don't know what happened. But my sister-in-laws and mother-in-law are messaging me that I ruined the family photos and that I've broken my mother-in-law's heart as she was dreaming of these photos of her beloved kids. Even my youngest sister-in-law, who's usually chummy with me, is saying I should have convinced my husband to go back. I don't know what to do. I've tried so hard to get them to like me. Her not wanting me in the photos hurt, but maybe I should have told him to just finish the photos. I did nothing to try and stop him, and I feel bad that I was just crying like a baby and couldn't even talk to my husband. Am I the jerk for crying and letting my husband just leave? Not the jerk. His mother is a real jerk, and good on him for getting upset about it. Though he should work on communicating better with you when he's upset, that said, he should be upset. His mother was belittling you. His family is basically saying, "We told you that you suck, that we don't like you, and we're complete jerks to you. But it's all your fault because you didn't tell him to stay after he got mad at us for being jerks." The Mouse Story. It was autumn 2019, shortly after the first frost, and our cat brings us a mouse. We take a picture and report to maintenance. They check out the apartment, see no mouse droppings, set a trap, and tell us to let them know if it happens again. A few nights later, we get another mouse. And then the next night, we get 2 more mice. We call maintenance. They claim to have found the issue behind the stove. They patch it and leave. We get another mouse. They claim there's an issue by our washer, dryer, and they patch that. Then there are more mice. We request a professional exterminator daily, and they refuse. Eventually, maintenance gets sick of our calls. We never got a mouse in our trap, and there's no mouse droppings. The only evidence of mice is our pictures of 16 mice with our cat over time. So the maintenance guy comes over with a clever idea. He says next time we get a mouse, we need to keep it and bring it to the main office. They can study it and figure out where it's coming from. My husband and I are well educated and know that's just not how mice work. The landlord doesn't want to pay an exterminator, and they don't believe the issue is as bad as it is. It's time for a little malicious compliance. A night or 2 later, we get a mouse. We put it in a garbage can in the tub until morning. Unfortunately, the little guy doesn't make it through the night. In the morning, we bag our friend and head up to the leasing building. The apartment manager is there, as are several families waiting to begin a tour of the complex. We explain to our landlord about the now 17 mice and how we're now supposed to personally deliver each mouse to her. She looks at my husband, horrified, grabs her cell phone, and heads to a back room. We can hear her screaming at the maintenance guy about his request. In the meantime, we're explaining to her potential tenants the issues we've been facing. A couple minutes later, she returns, tosses the mouse in the garbage, and says they'll be paying a professional exterminator to take a look at the building. The exterminator found hundreds of entry points, which get taken care of. That was the last mouse we ever had in that apartment. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.